you don't want to hang around here any longer than you have to either. But I'm glad that you're all here because it's a lot of important information that we are going to be covering. Laura is coming around to give you each couple, or if you're not a couple, an individual, a packet. It's one per family unit, if you will. The intent of this workshop is actually to help you understand some of the thought processes that go into retirement and also some of the benefits that you can expect, hopefully answer some of your questions about retirement and what really planning for retirement means, and so on. Before I go too far, I do want to introduce myself to those of you who don't happen to know who I am. I know I've met a lot of you in the past, some of you many, many years ago, others more recently. My name's Paul Snyder. I've been with Concordia Plans now for a little over 36 years. About 36 years ago, I took a temporary job doing data entry that was going to last 5 months. Still there. Things change. Jobs change. I changed. I had hair back then, so we won't go there. I'm a graduate of another Concordia. I actually graduated from, when I went there, it was Concordia College in River Forest. Now it's Concordia University Chicago, but yay, Concordias. So, but I've had family members who've gone to various other Concordias too. And so I've been involved with different aspects of Concordia Plans for a number of years. I spent a lot of time actually in our retirement area processing and paying retirement benefits, which is where I learned a lot about our plans and also learned a lot about some of the questions people have when they're retiring. And then later on, I moved into our education area to help educate people on their benefits and on retirement. In addition to working for Concordia Plans, I'm also the director of worship at my congregation in St. Louis at Emmanuel Lutheran in Olivet. So I end up also providing some benefit information to them too, in addition to my other duties. But with me, it also helps me understand some of the things that our church workers are looking for when it comes to benefit information and what some of their needs are. And also, I grew up in a pastor's family. My dad was a Lutheran pastor, so I learned firsthand a lot about life in the church that way. And in addition to that, I probably shouldn't say it, but I am a diehard Cardinals fan, so the results of the last 3 baseball games have made me happy, although for those of you that are Brewers fans, probably not as much. But remember, I felt that way the first series of the season when the Brewers beat up the Cardinals, so it's a little bit about me. Along with me today is Laura Shear here in the back. Laura has got several years with Concordia Plans, not quite as many as me, but if you want to just say a few words about you and your experience, because you'll be seeing a lot more of Laura around campus in the future too.
So my name's Laura Shear, and I'm a financial wellness educator with Concordia Plans. I worked in our 403B area, managing our 403B plan for several years. And I love talking about retirement so much that I get to do it full time now. So I'm coming out to the universities, talking to workers, but also something new that we're doing is reaching out to the students before they enter the church work and kind of teaching them some financial wellness and saving for retirement early, paying off debt, all that fun stuff. So I hope to see you guys a lot more.
Each of you, or each couple, if you're here with your spouse, should have one of these blue packets. All the PowerPoint slides are in the back side of here, in a sheet here. There's a place for you to make notes. I've got a couple extras if you need them. There's some other information in the packet that we are going to be going through. Do not worry about the size of the information in the packet. Some of it is actually take-home stuff for you, so that you've got some resources to rely on. Because if I went through everything that's in here page by page, we would be here much longer than either you or I want to be here. So the main reason, like I said, the title says it, are you going to be ready for retirement? I've talked to some of you individually already, so some of what I say might be a little bit of repeat, but at least you get a free dinner out of it. So we really want to first talk about what is retirement readiness, because for some people it's looking at the financial side of retirement. That's a big part of it. You can't really retire if you don't understand what you're going to have to live on in retirement or what you're going to need to live on in retirement. But there are a lot of other things that go into that too. Things about what you're going to be doing with your life, where you might be living, what you're doing for health care, all those things that can really impact your readiness for retirement. Most of us, I know I look forward to my eventual retirement. Some people really don't, not so much that they don't want to retire, but there's really, in a lot of cases, they're just uncertain about the future. Retirement's new for people, something you haven't done before probably. So people put it off because of their fear of the unknown. So what we try and do is help you understand some of those things that might be on your mind, some of your concerns, that you really have less fear of the future, and really more than anything else, you're looking forward to all the opportunities retirement can bring. It's also very important, though, that you do look ahead and that you do plan. There are some people who jump into retirement without really thinking about it ahead of time. And as the saying goes, failure to plan is planning to fail. A lot of those people really fail at retirement because they haven't looked ahead and they don't really understand what retirement means. Sometimes that failure is financial. A lot of times that failure is actually more in they are just not personally ready for retirement because they're not ready to let go of work. They're not ready to let go of the status that their job might give. Or even if they're ready to let go of that, they haven't planned for how they're going to fill 24 hours a day when they're no longer going into work. So that's a big part of retirement planning. And sometimes one of the things that makes your retirement the most successful is really planning for those things. But the other thing that you also keep in mind is that sometimes those things that you're going to do when you're retired and no longer chained to your desk, those might have a price tag on them. And you need to be prepared when you're planning financially for retirement for all those fun things that you're thinking about doing that you never got to do while you were working, but now that you're going to be retired, you've got the time to do them. And like I tell people too, in most cases, retirement's going to come for most people someday, whether they're really ready for it or not. Some people never get to retirement. They die while they're still working. But most people do end up retiring, and there are some people who do end up retiring for other reasons, not so much that they really had planned and ready for it, but outside factors like health or loss of job or something. So we want to be ready for retirement. We want to be ready for whatever it's going to bring us. And to that end, we give you some helps. There is a very, I think, high-level booklet in your packet, simply called Planning for Retirement Today. We've had prior books like this in the past. This was just recently updated and kind of streamlined. So it's got some helpful hints in you for here to help you with retirement. There's kind of an introduction in here and an index, and we'll go through parts of this. Tonight we won't go through all of it, but if you open it inside the front cover, basically, not the inside of the front cover, but the next page has got a list of some important questions. These are questions you really need to ask yourself about retirement. And the first question most people ask, am I going to have enough income to live on in retirement? Which is an important question. The second part of that question, though, is, okay, what is enough income to live on in retirement? What's enough for me might not be enough for you. It might be more than you need. It all depends on what you need, what it's going to cost you to live, and what you want to do in retirement. Then there are the other questions. Where am I going to live? It might be, well, I'm just staying in the house I'm in right now. Well, is it paid for? Are you going to have to do changes to your house before you retire? Are you planning on selling it or moving somewhere else? All of those can have an impact on the financial side of your retirement too. Your health care, not just am I going to have health insurance and what that's going to cost, but how am I going to take care of my health in retirement so that I can enjoy the retirement that I'm looking forward to? That's just as important as having the health insurance, is making sure that you are healthy enough to enjoy it. So handling your health issues. What are you going to do with your time? Again, if you're not coming in here and working 8 to 10 or however many hours a week you work here, or day, I mean, a week, 8-hour work week would be nice. What are you doing with that time? Are you spending it doing other work? Are you spending it on recreation and leisure? Are you one of those people that can't wait to retire to spend all your time spoiling your grandkids or something? You need to figure that out. Again, one of the reasons that retirement isn't successful for a lot of people is that boredom can set in if they haven't adequately planned for their time. And I'm not saying schedule every hour, and especially when you first retire, you're going to want some downtime to sit back and reflect on what is it that I want to do. Another key question that might sound strange to you is, who am I going to be in retirement? A lot of people, professional people especially, take an awful lot of their self-worth and their identity from not so much who they are, but what they do. And so if you quit doing what you're doing, does that mean you are no longer who you were before? Some people, it's almost that way. This is quite often a big issue with people who work for the church, especially because our identity as church workers is, in a lot of ways, part of our personal identity. It's not just what we do, but why we're doing it, serving the Lord and stuff too. But you want to make sure that you understand what's your identity going to be when you retire. Again, if a lot of your self-worth, your self-confidence, everything comes from what you're doing, what are you going to do in retirement to kind of replace that in your life? Make sure you understand that. That will help make your retirement successful. And another thing we talk about and we're concerned about is, so what happens when the Lord calls us home? If you're married, how's your spouse going to be taken care of? Or if you have other loved ones to worry about, what's going to happen to your assets? That's an important part of retirement planning too. And any one of these questions can have an impact on the financial side of your retirement. Some questions that you ask yourself, well, when do you want to retire? Well, there are days when I could say yesterday. There are days, I know probably some of you feel that way. You ask yourself, well, if I'm setting a retirement date, why? Why do I want to retire when I think I want to retire? Is it again because the government, meaning Social Security, said, well, you can retire when you hit 66 or 67 and draw your full Social Security? Well, that may be one of your guideposts for retiring, but shouldn't necessarily be your only guide. It's like, just because I can retire at 66, does that mean it's right for me, or whatever the date may be? What all is going into that decision? Is it you're tired of doing what you're doing right now? Is it you want to stop and do something else? Is it you want more free time for something else? Have you balanced your needs of what you want to do with your finances? Some people base their retirement on the fact, well, I need to earn so much and save so much more before I reach that point that I can retire. And according to my game plan, by the time I hit X and X age, I'll have enough debt taken care of and enough saved that I can afford to live at the lifestyle to which I have become accustomed in retirement. So there are a lot of things that can go into that decision about retirement, both personal and financial. And what you're really looking for is balancing those out. Sometimes you might have to make trade-offs. You might say, I really, really just don't want to work anymore. So what are the trade-offs? Am I willing to work harder or save more now so I can retire a little earlier? Or am I willing to say, if I really want to retire earlier, maybe I have to give up some of the things I'd like to do with my money in retirement, like less travel or less eating or something else. Or are you maybe one who said, I really would rather live at a different level in retirement, so I'm willing to work a little longer to meet those goals? So what you're really kind of in a way asking yourself is, when I get ready to retire, retirement means I'm free from what I'm doing, but what really am I freeing myself up for as I go into retirement? So there are some exploration exercises in the book here on pages 2 and 3, and actually even page 4, which we're not going through these and walking through them tonight, but they're things that you can go through to help you start figuring out this process of what is it that I want in retirement? How prepared am I now? What are the things that I'm looking forward to? What are the things that I'm concerned about? When I envision my retirement, where am I living? What am I doing with my time? Who are the people around me? What are the things that are around me? And so on. And then also a checklist on page 4 for you to go through and start saying, well, as I get ready to retire, do I know what my pension is going to be? Well, we're going to talk about that quite a bit tonight. Do I know about Social Security? Do I know about other things? Do I know about my debt? Do I know about my health habits? So kind of a checklist to make sure that you can tick off all these boxes. And if there are ones you say no to, then there may be things that you're going to have to go back and revisit before you really get further into your retirement planning. So any questions just on this introductory thing, or any comments any of you have before we move on? Hearing none, we're going to continue on with basically what I call checking your financial health. We all get checkups. Hopefully you're all getting checkups to check your physical health. You should be checking your financial health too. Some of you, I don't know if some of you, I think some might have, if not, went to Laura's session this noon where she talked about good financial health habits. If you want more information on that, I'm sure she will gladly share her presentation materials with you. You can ask for that. But it's really important that you understand your financial health going into retirement, because you can do a lot more to change the health of your finances while you're still working and still have that earned income than you can after you retire. You don't want to wait till you retire and say, well, once I'm retired, I can sit down and I can develop good spending and good saving habits once I'm retired. No, probably not. If you're not doing it ahead of time, it's probably not going to change that much in retirement. So you want to make sure that you are financially healthy. Part of your financial health is going to be figuring out what you really need to live on in retirement. Things like understanding what expenses are going to stay the same as you go into retirement. What expenses might change after retire. How are you spending your money? Hopefully you're not just throwing it away or playing games with it. Unless maybe that's part of your retirement plan, then hopefully you'll have enough extra money saved to do that. So how are you doing that? There are some basic steps that you should always follow, and they're pretty simple when you're checking your financial health. One of them, absolutely the most important step, I think, in being prepared financially is that you get all of your information together. When people are planning financially and they get started in doing all this, quite frankly, that's where most people get stuck. You'd be amazed at how many people don't even really know what they have and where it's at. And not just what they have or what they own, but also understanding what they still owe and what they need to do about that. So first step is always gather your data together. Get it all in one place. Understand what your assets are. Understand what your liabilities are, what your debts are. And that can sometimes be time consuming, which is why a lot of people don't necessarily do it. They'll start out with good intentions, but they'll get bogged down in it. They'll get bored with it. They'll set it aside and say, I'll pick it up and do it later on, and later never comes. There are other people who don't do it for another reason. That's that there are an awful lot of people that are really afraid to find out the truth about their finances. So they kind of figure, well, if I don't look at it, there are no problems that exist, which obviously we call that the kind of ostrich sticking their head in the sand problem. It's like, yeah, you stick your head in the sand and you're not going to see trouble coming, even if it comes. But that doesn't mean that those problems aren't there. It's just that it might take a lot longer for you to discover them, and you might not discover them in time to do anything about them. So make sure that you look. Even if the truth is something that might not be as attractive as you like, you still want to look at it because you can still do something about it. It's never too late to make changes. Then what you want to do is figure out what your goals and objectives are. If you know that you want to retire at a certain time, well, goal setting for retirement is maybe not nearly as complex as goal setting for a university. You don't have to write long papers and studies and everything else. It's like, what are your goals? I want to retire at a certain age. I want to be able to live with a certain amount of my pre-retirement income because I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to do that in retirement. So those are my goals. So what I'm going to do then, once I've set those goals and said, well, my goals, I'm going to retire at this age and I want to be able to do all these things while I'm still healthy enough to do them. Let's look at our data. Let's see what it is that I already have. What have I accrued? What do I owe? How am I going to make that money that I'm going to have coming into retirement cover all of those needs? And is it going to? If not, what are the things that I can do to adjust that? Am I going to need to cut back a little bit now and save a little more? Am I going to need to break down and really work hard to pay certain things off? You need to figure that out and then put together a plan of action so that you can meet those goals that you've set. Sometimes when you put all this together, you might have to go back and readjust some of those goals too. So put together that plan of action, implement your plan, because if you don't do anything with it, why bother doing it? And then monitor it over time, because things will change. Just because you put together a perfectly splendid plan for your finances, it doesn't mean that outside things aren't going to come in and affect that plan, like changes in work, family changes, changes in the economy around you, and so on. And one thing you remember when you're doing this, you're not just planning for that one day when you get to announce that you're retiring. That's only one happy day when you get to wave goodbye to everybody and say, it's been nice working here. We'll see you at the next reunion or whatever. You're planning for a long range. Some of you might be living 30 and more years in retirement, depending on your health. Think about that. Can you afford to plan for a 30-year vacation if you consider retirement that? So it takes a lot of planning to make sure it's all going to go well. We have some tools to help you. We have this other book that's in your packet called Money Management, and it's really a basic financial planning guide just to give you some of the tools that you can use to work with to make sure that your financial plans are on track. Then we've got some online tools that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. For example, when I talk about gathering all your information together, right inside the front here is kind of a checklist of some of the things you need to look at when we're talking about getting your information together. Whether it's about your income, about your expenses, your home, cash you have, retirement accounts, even things like insurance policies and other things, know where all of that is. What are your liabilities? So it's fairly, I think, very simply and easy to follow. Then following that, there are a number of worksheets, 4 basic ones that we ask you to look at and do. And I'm not going to go through in great detail on any of these tonight, again, or we'd be here a lot longer. One of them's your net worth statement. That's the first statement in here. That's just the difference between what you currently own and what you currently owe. Because if you owe a whole lot and don't own that much, you're probably not ready for retirement because you don't have enough gathered in assets to cover those debts that you have. So you want a positive net worth if you're going to retire. You also, when you're looking at those assets on your net worth statement, okay, which of these are assets that I can use as an income stream in retirement? Which of these are assets that I own for other purposes? Maybe some of these are even assets that you have that you've inherited or things that you're going to pass on to your kids or something else. You need to look at them that way and say, okay, which of these are going to be part of my retirement income plan? Same thing with your liabilities is which of these liabilities do I definitely want to get rid of before I go into retirement? Which of them might I be willing to carry into retirement with me and for how long? Certain assets, we kind of go through in categories: checking, savings, retirement funds, and so on, other assets, personal property, collectibles. One thing I always caution people, if you're listing personal property and collectibles as assets, make sure that it's something that you can have appraised and set a cash value on. Because just because you like to collect it does not necessarily mean it's going to have a value if you get ready to cash it in to help fund your retirement. Maybe it's a coin collection, if you've got a few rare old baseball cards that somebody really wants or things like that. Your 1001 Beanie Babies are probably not going to get you much when it comes to retirement income. Having said it, you can collect anything you like. I come from a very long line of collectors. Believe me, when each of my parents died, I got rid of a lot of collections and such too. So if you want to be a real burden to your children, you leave them a lot of junk like that to deal with once you're gone. So that's one of the things that you do. Things like liabilities. If you're carrying debt on your credit cards, that's a liability you probably want to get rid of as quickly as possible and definitely before you go into retirement. When you think about it now, it's like if I'm having trouble paying off my credit card balance or I'm still working and have more disposable income, is it going to become any easier after I retire? Probably not. Do I want to carry a high interest credit card into retirement? Probably not. Not saying you're not going to use your credit card in retirement, but try and get rid of debt like that. If you've got other loans, if you have outstanding taxes or things like that, you probably want to get rid of them. One of the biggest questions we get when it comes to retirement is, should I try and pay my house off and get rid of my mortgage before I go into retirement? The answer to that is, could be yes, could be no. It is not necessarily bad to carry your mortgage into retirement as long as you have got the retirement income coming in to pay your mortgage and all your other bills. Sometimes it's a short-term thing. Like, for example, with me, I'm figuring once I decide to retire, I'll probably still have a mortgage payment for the first couple of years of retirement, then it'll be done. And early on in retirement, I don't see that as a problem. Ministers of religion, I know several of you here are rostered. You've got another little wrinkle that goes into this. That's that as long as you have eligible housing expenses in retirement, you still get to justify or qualify your pension income from the Concordia Retirement Plan or income you're drawing from the Concordia Retirement Savings Plan as housing, and to the extent you have eligible housing expenses, not pay income tax on it. So for some ministers, they don't really worry that much about getting their house paid off, or for those who end up having to buy a home once they have retired, it gives you a way to help finance that home. So your opinion of paying off your home before you, or your mortgage before you retire, might differ from somebody else's. There is no one right or wrong answer. You just have to say what makes most sense financially for you and your family. Do I do it or do I not do it? And that's one of those things where you can obviously sit down and discuss the pros and cons with one of us in a one-on-one session or phone or something else too, if you like to. If you're kind of starting to weigh out your plans and say, well, what really makes sense for me, and how does this whole housing thing work and stuff too. But all of that would be stuff you do on this net worth statement. Another statement that's in there is the personal income statement. This is just a way that you can track where your money's coming from and where it's going. Right now, you might be doing this on a regular basis while you're still working. You're going to want to create another one basically with your retirement budget, because your income is going to probably change when you go into retirement. A lot of people find that they've actually got a lot more sources of income when they go into retirement. They might have their pension, they might have their Social Security, they might have their 403B, they might have other savings, they might have income from another job they've had. So you've got a whole lot of different sources, but you have to weigh all those sources combined against what is your current salary. How much is your retirement income going to replace what you're currently making? You would include your spouse's information. Then you go through the list of expenses. What expenses are going to stay the same when you retire and what are going to change? Some are pretty obvious. In most cases, unless you're moving or making drastic changes, your household expenses are probably not going to change a whole lot. Your toiletries and cleaning and groceries and all those probably are not going to change a whole lot. Some of your entertainment expenses are possibly going to go up. You got more free time on your hands. You can go out to the show, you can go out to dinner and all sorts of other things. So how does that work in financially? On the other hand, if you're retired, you can go to the early bird show and save a whole lot more money than other people. Other things that will potentially change in retirement are things like taxes. Depending on your status, some of your income in retirement is going to be still considered taxable. Again, for ministers, your pension income could be taxable unless you can justify it as housing, but then you might not have to pay taxes on it. The biggest tax change that you're going to see in retirement is in Social Security, because most of your retirement income is not going to be subject to Social Security or self-employment taxes. Things like pension income, Social Security income, income from savings and investment, you're not going to pay Social Security or self-employment tax on that. So the only Social Security or self-employment tax you might still be paying would be if you're still working somewhere instead of what's known as earned income. So that's going to potentially lower your taxes. Depending on where you might live after retirement, some states don't tax pension income at all, so you might not pay state tax on it. Others do. On the flip side of that, you might have another expense that's going to be higher in retirement, and that is the fact that you no longer have an employer that's providing the bulk of your health care for you. So you become responsible for the cost of your health insurance. That can be a significant cost, especially if you decide to retire before 65, before you're eligible for Medicare. For a couple, based on the rates around here right now, most of our health plans around here, if you continue your coverage, going to cost you around $17,000 to $18,000 a year for a couple to continue your health insurance in retirement if you retire before you're eligible for Medicare. That cost will go down significantly if you retire at 65 or later and you are eligible for Medicare. And we'll get a little more into Medicare and healthcare in a little bit. So those are things that you look at. What's going to stay the same? What's going to change? When you add up your income and your expenses, are you going to have adequate income to cover those expenses? And the other thing that you have to factor in, which some of our online tools will do for you, is what about that lovely word nobody likes to talk about, inflation? Our retirement modelers online provide calculators that help factor inflation in. So you figure, well, if something's costing so much now, if there's a 3% annual inflation, how much more is that same thing going to cost 10 years from now in retirement? And will my retirement income keep up with that inflation? That's one of the things that we want to encourage you to do, is make sure that you don't just plan for, oh, I'm fine right now, but will you be fine 10, 15, 20 years down the road if the Lord blesses you with a longer life? So we want to make sure that you factor all of that in too. And that's where more of the online tools opposed to the paper ones work. Other things, oh, quit doing that, Paul. The expense summary, it's the next worksheet in here. It's just a summary where if you're not sure of what your regular expenses are, that you can average them up over a 6-month period. So when you put your budget together, you kind of know what you're spending. Because if you're like me, I don't spend the exact same amount of money on everything every month. Grocery bills change. Sometimes utilities fluctuate from month to month. Gasoline prices sometimes fluctuate regularly. Certain months I spend a lot more money than others. Now, some people pay taxes quarterly, so those months are higher expense months. I pay certain of my insurances, like every 6 months I do my auto insurance. There are certain times of year that I do more travel, so those months have higher expenses. And then, of course, there's the month of December where everybody's budgets tend to go crazy because of Christmas, or in my case, an additional 6 family birthdays in December. So December is an expensive month. I don't want to pay for December out of one check. So by averaging your expenses out and including the high expense months, you can make sure that you're setting that amount aside every month, so that when you need to spend a large amount, you've already got it set aside. That's what this expense summary is good for, which will then help you put the 4th document together, and that is your budget. And again, you should be budgeting right now while you're actively working. Hopefully you all are. Some people budget in different ways. Some use a paper form like this. I use an online spreadsheet for a lot of mine. Very simple. You can even download simple budget tools if you want to use somebody else's tool and just plug in your numbers every month and let them go. There are a lot of free tools online for that, but it's important to do. And that's equally true as you go into retirement. You still need a budget because you still need to make sure that you're spending what you need to spend. And the good thing about a budget, which is a word sometimes I hardly like to use, a nicer word to use is actually, this is my spending plan. That's really what a budget is. It's not somebody else's plan for you, it's your plan for you. Really, the only reason to have a budget is to keep you on track with where you want to be with your spending. And by you, I use it collectively if you are part of a couple and you're planning. The you is a plural you when it comes to your own budgeting. One or the other of you is not supposed to make all the financial decisions autonomously. You can make them, but the other partner in the marriage still needs to know what's going on, because what happens if something happens to you and you're no longer able to make these decisions or explain to somebody? Hopefully, whoever else is going to take over and deal with these things for you understands your budget, knows what it is that needs to be spent and where. So even if you're the principal person handling it, you still may need to make sure that your spouse, if you're married, or whoever else might be handling these, is aware of what your spending plan is. So if something happens to you and you can't do it for a while, they can do it for you. Even if it's short term. I mean, when my dad first retired, he traveled overseas for the LCMS doing mission work in Kazakhstan and other places. He obviously could not pay his bills from overseas. He was lucky he got letters over there, much less anything else. So when he was out of the country, he would give me his checkbook, and his church would forward all of his bills to me, and I would pay them as they came in. My father, unfortunately, was not the type of person who liked having written budgets and written spending plans. In fact, the man didn't even put entries in his check register. So I had no idea what was in his checking account, what needed to be paid, what was coming in pension or anything else. It drove me crazy. So I made a lot of phone calls, like to the bank, because it was a joint bank account, and so the bank had to tell me what was in my account and what the automatic deposits were. Fortunately, I lived in a tiny town in North Texas, and everybody knew each other by name, so I could just call the bank, tell her Dottie, and say, would you please let me know what's in Dad's account and when the automatic deposits are coming in and anything else I need to know. And then as the bills came, I posted them all in his register, and after 4 months of him being gone down, it was all in perfect balance shape. And the next time he left the country, it was left right where I left it. So not a good plan if you want to keep other people from being really frustrated with you. So just keep that in mind. Do your budget, review it on a regular monthly basis, and as you go through retirement, keep doing that. Because again, in retirement, we live on a totally different type of income, and you want to make sure that you've always got the income there and that your spending habits meet what your needs are so that you're in essence living within your means and allow you to do the things that you want to do in retirement. So questions on any of these worksheets, like I said, they're all pretty simple, but all really necessary to make sure you're on track financially both now and as you go into retirement. So if not, we're going to start looking at that lovely thing, retirement income, a big important thing. We want to make sure that, again, like I said, we can afford to live the retirement lifestyle to which we would like to become accustomed. So where is your retirement income going to come from? Or in essence, as I show here, what is going to make up your nest egg? Generally, for most of us, we're probably going to be looking at three things to finance our retirement. Hence this illustration of a three-legged stool, which has been around for a long, long time when it comes to retirement planning. If you want a good, solid retirement base, you need to have good, solid legs on your plan. The three legs that we generally look at, although sometimes we tack on other things too, but the basic ones are your pension, your retirement income from your employer, what the government provides for you in the way of Social Security benefits, and then your own personal saving and investing for your retirement. Sometimes continuing to work in retirement can add to those legs and such too. But those are really the three basics that we're going to look at when it comes to, are you going to have enough to live on in retirement? First thing we're going to look at is leg one, your retirement income from Concordia plans, although part of this also involves that leg three, saving for your future. So kind of the two of the legs are here. Leg one, for those of you who work here, and you might have pension or income from other sources, is the Concordia Retirement Plan. Again, pension. It is employer funded, meaning you're not putting anything into this. Everything that goes into it has come through your employment either here at Concordia or other LCMS employers you might have found. It's a set monthly benefit. Again, a guaranteed lifetime income to you. You don't have to worry about the risk and the rewards of investing. We take care of that for you. While it says your employer, it's really the board of Concordia Plans that takes care of that for you. Your employer pays the cost of it. Our board does the investing, invest it all in the trust fund that then is going to turn around and provide the income for you. The benefit will continue for as long as you live, and depending on choices you make at the time that you start receiving it, also can potentially continue on to your spouse throughout the rest of their lifetime if they outlive you. So that is really the core of leg one. Leg three, at least a part of leg three for most of you, might be the Concordia Retirement Savings Plan. That's the 403B that you're offered through the university here. Again, 403B, it's funded by you. You're the one putting the money aside for that. It has an account balance that you can take money out of. You can also convert it to a monthly income stream. So kind of you are the one that's responsible for the risk and the reward. We provide tools to help you with the fund management and stuff, but ultimately the decisions that are made about your 403B are your decisions. How much do I want to invest? What kind of funds do I want to put it in, or do I want to use the automated funds manager and let them do that, and so on? It gives you the opportunity not just to take monthly income while you're living or income for your spouse, but it gives you the opportunity to leave money that's still in that plan to other people after your death. You can kind of use it for some of your legacy planning or estate planning too. One employer, one individual, but two important components. The Concordia Retirement Plan itself has been around for a long, long time. It was established in 1965. And basically, the traditional Concordia Retirement Plan, what we really call the Concordia Retirement Plan now, it's also been known in the past as your primary retirement benefit, is your pension. It's what we call a defined benefit, meaning a set formula is used to calculate what you're going to get in retirement income. A lot of other things like your 403B, if you have IRAs or other accounts, they're defined contribution plans because you're putting money into an account. You see an account balance. You invest it, it grows, so on. This is based on a set predetermined formula that determines what your pension will be. That's the basic Concordia Retirement Plan. Now, over the years, Concordia Plans, our board has added and changed other supplemental benefits too. In 1999, for some of you that were around back then, we added what was known as a supplemental retirement account. There was excess income in the plan trust. So what our board did is they took that extra money that they'd earned through great investment returns, and they created these little cash accounts for everybody that was in the Concordia Retirement Plan. And that continued through June of 2014. The economy had changed, worker needs had changed, all sorts of other things had changed. So in 2014, that particular benefit was capped. Everybody's account stayed out there. Nobody lost their accounts, but there was no more money going into those accounts after June 30th of 2014, except it is still earning interest based on the Treasury rate. So it continues to earn interest until you take it out. Because it's a cash account, it does have a cash balance. So when you retire, you have the option to either take it out as a lump sum payment or to convert it to a monthly pension. A third benefit that we added in 2006 was called the Retiree Medical Supplement. This was just a credit given to anybody that was serving at a place like Concordia University that at that particular point in time adopted our new plan package called the Church's Plan, which meant they were adopting our new 403B, which Concordia did, and also that you as a worker were in our health plan, or if you weren't, that you'd opted out for what we call an eligible reason. Every worker that was serving at an employer that was part of that was given what we call retiree medical supplement credits, just a flat dollar credit for every year you'd been in a retirement plan. That credit went from the time it was established, or if you were here at the time, back to when you were first enrolled in the Concordia Retirement Plan, through June of 2014, that was capped at that time too. But again, those accounts are still out there. They didn't disappear just because the plan was changed. Again, they were based on our board having the excess funds to do that with. But their main goal with all of this was, let's make sure that the primary pension is always strong and robust. So some of you might have just one of these if you're a shorter term worker and you weren't here before June of 2014. Some of you might have two of them. Some of you might actually have all three of these. The way you find that out is when you look at your benefits, either if you contact our office and request them, or if you go online and use our retirement calculator, you will see all of those benefits if they're available to you. The pension, simple explanation, is based on two primary factors. One of those is we average your high compensation or salary. Every year, the university reports your gross salary to us. We use that to bill them for your contributions to the plan. That goes into figuring out what your pension will be. So when you stop working full-time, we'll look at your salary history and we will average whatever 60 consecutive months, which is 5 years, come up with the highest monthly average. For most people, it's at the end of your career, but not for everybody. If you had higher average salaries in the past, we'd use those past salaries as long as they're within the last 20 years. So step one is figure out what an average of your high salary is. Second step is figure out how many years and months you've been in the Concordia Retirement Plan. You have to be in at least 5 years to be vested. Once you're in 5 years, that means you're going to be guaranteed a pension. But we take this average high salary, we multiply it by a percentage that's based on the number of years and months that you have been in the retirement plan, and then that determines how much your pension is going to be at your normal retirement age. Then the third factor could be your age. If you decide to retire before your normal retirement age, you could see a reduction to your benefits if you choose to take them out earlier than the normal payment time. So that's where age comes into the factor. It's not part of the initial calculation, just potentially part of the distribution factor too. So years of service times the average high salary, that determines your pension, your primary pension. And again, it's payable normally at your full retirement age, or if you work beyond your full retirement age, which is whatever Social Security says your full retirement age is, it would be payable at the time you actually retire. It can be paid earlier if you're retired, but then again, if you take it out earlier, it's reduced. Why? Because the pension's designed to pretty much say, if you retire at normal retirement age, live the normal age, you're going to draw X number of dollars out. So if you start taking the money out earlier, it basically says that we have to reduce it because in theory, if you live throughout your normal lifetime, you should probably receive the same value out of the retirement benefit. There is another option that is available to people, which takes special consideration because again, normally you have to be retired to draw your benefit. But if you keep working full-time beyond your age 65, we do have an option called an in-service payment that allows you to draw part of your pension while you're still working full-time. But that again, that's only true if you're over age 65. You cannot draw pension benefits while you're still working full time and eligible to be enrolled in the plans if you're under age 65. But if you're getting to be close to age 65 and you think you might still be working for a number of other years, you might want to contact our office and get some information about in-service payments, because they work a little bit differently from other payments. They've got different tax ramifications, such too, and taking an in-service payment can impact what you'd get later on when you finally do retire. So we need to talk to you about it more on a one-on-one basis, because each one is calculated individually. But those are some of your options. You have distribution options with your pension. You get to kind of choose, depending on your marital status, how you want to take it. If you're married, you have all four of these options. You can take options that have no survivor benefits. You can take options that leave benefits to your spouse. Your spouse would appreciate you if you do that. If you're single, you have two options for single life payments. So, starting over here, single life, it's pretty simple. It's going to pay you a benefit throughout your lifetime, but once you die, there's no ongoing payments to anybody, whether you die a month after you retire or 30 years later. There's no guarantee of any set payment time, except that it's going to be paid for your life. There's a 10-year certain in life benefit. Again, they're all lifetime payments to you. With the 10-year certain in life payment, it's payable throughout your lifetime. However, if you should die before receiving payments for 10 years or 120 payments, we would pay the balance of whatever is owed for that 10-year period to whomever you designate as your beneficiary, with your spouse or someone else. Now, if you live beyond 10 years, your benefit doesn't stop. You keep getting it because it's a lifetime benefit. Then we've got two options with survivor benefits to a spouse, either 70% to a spouse, so throughout your lifetime, after your death, your spouse, we call it eligible surviving spouse, because there are little caveats, like it does have to be the same spouse to whom you're married at the time you started drawing the benefits, things like that. If you choose to take this benefit, then after your death, they'll receive 70% of your benefit for the rest of their life. Or another option where you take a slightly reduced benefit, and then at the time of your death, your spouse keeps receiving 100% of what you were doing. You make this choice at the time your benefit becomes payable. You don't have to decide way ahead of time what you want to do. You might have an idea ahead of time of what makes sense, but you actually make the decision when you get ready to start payments, because while something might sound really good to you right now, circumstances in your life could change between now and then. So you're not going to lock yourself in until you're ready to start paying it or taking it. However, once it goes into pay status, it is an irrevocable decision. If you choose the 100% survivor benefit and something happens to your spouse a month or two later, you can't go back and change it to single life. Unfortunately, that's not the way pensions work. The other thing married workers have to keep in mind is that if you choose one of the two options that don't have spousal benefits, the single life or the 10-year certain in life, we do require a signed and notarized spousal consent form. You cannot decide legally to disenfranchise your spouse without their permission. So you will want to do that. It doesn't happen that often that a married worker does that, because they want to make sure their spouse is provided for. There are sometimes cases where it makes sense, but you want to make sure you know your own individual family finances when you decide which of these makes the most sense to me or to us as a couple when it comes to looking at our overall financial needs in retirement. Sure.
Does the monthly benefit then go down the farther right you move on that chart?
Yes, because you're going to get a bigger benefit as a single life, because we don't have to worry about providing anything to Kay. Whereas if you want to provide her with the largest amount, you're going to see that this benefit is somewhat reduced. And I will tell you that, and you've seen your own, the benefit reductions really aren't all that much. For example, when we do a calculation, that calculation of average years of service times, or average high salary times years of service, that basically calculates a joint life benefit with 70%. If you decide to go up and do a single life benefit, it's exactly 5% more than this benefit. That's all. So it's no great big jump. Whereas if you go to the joint 100, depending on how close in age your spouse is to you, in most cases, that reduction to provide 100% benefit is only going to reduce your benefit around 4 to 5% is all. So it's not a huge reduction, but the difference in what she'd get as a survivor is pretty huge. So you want to think about those. So this is an example of, this is a made-up person that I did a calculation for, John Luther, or whatever you want to call him, age 66, wife age 62. I calculated his joint life benefit being $29.09 per month, meaning 70% survivor to his spouse, $20.36. If he'd choose to go with 100% survivor, he'd see a reduction in his benefit. In this case, his benefit would go down $117 a month. Hers would go up $750 a month by going with 100%. Now, if he decide I want to do a single life benefit, his would go up 5% to $145 more to $3,054. But when he died, no matter how soon after retirement was, she'd lose all the survivor benefits. Her benefit would go to exactly zero. And then the 10-year and certain life benefit, it's a little bit more than a joint and 70, less than straight single life. And again, he'd get a larger benefit, but that would $114 a month more. But when he died, that would stop. The only time there would be any other benefits payable is if he hadn't lived 10 years. Then we add up so many months of that $3,000, pay it to whoever he designates as beneficiary, and the benefits would end. So anytime you look at your benefits online, you will see all of these figures as they apply to you. You'll see this is the distribution option, this is what you would get every month, and if you choose that option, this is what your spouse would get after your death. So whenever you run estimates online, or if we send them to you in the mail or something, you'll see that. So that's the basic primary pension, which is for most people the biggest core part of their retirement income. If you have benefits from the supplemental retirement account, the retirement medical supplement, again, workers that enrolled the plans prior to June 30th, 2014 might have these. You should have these, at least the supplemental retirement account. With both of those benefits, they're available as a lump sum because they're cash accounts with a cash balance. So at the time of retirement, you can look at those and say, I can take that money out as a lump sum, or I can convert it to a pension and add that to my primary pension. You'll be given that choice. If you take it as a pension, you have to take the same distribution option that you take with your primary pension. So if you're taking your primary pension with 100% of your spouse, you have to do that with these. If you take it out as a lump sum, you can do that with either one or both of these. And you can either just take a lump sum cash payment, we'll pay it to you, and you'll be taxed on it in that calendar year. In fact, we would be obligated to automatically withhold 20% in federal income tax before we pay it to you, because that's what the law says we have to do. The other way that it can be paid as a lump sum is if you take it out as what we call a direct rollover. You can take that lump sum money from the supplemental retirement account, the retirement medical supplement, and you can roll it over into another qualified plan. What does that mean? If you're putting money in the 403B, the CRISP, the Concordia Retirement Savings Plan, you could roll this money into your 403B. You could roll it into other qualified plans like IRAs and such too. So you can take that money out, put it into another plan, which gives you more control over it, lets you add that to the other assets that you save. So then you can kind of control the flow of the money going down the road. You can take it out as you need it. You can leave it there and only take out the minimum amounts required once you reach a certain age, meaning you can leave it to your beneficiaries, to your spouse, to other beneficiaries. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, whereas converting it to a pension, it gives you that guarantee that I'm going to get that payment every month for as long as I live, and possibly my spouse will too. But you kind of lose the flexibility of, in essence, turning the flow on and off as you need it. So it's a trade-off. You've got the guarantee of guaranteed income versus the flexibility of being able to control it a little more yourself. And again, neither one is right or wrong. It's all what's right for you, what works best for you when you're putting together your retirement plan, which again is if you sit down individually with me or with somebody else or with another financial planner, we can kind of walk you through different scenario and how they might benefit you and how they might work for you. Taxes. I briefly touched on this when I was talking about some of your liabilities. Retirement benefits from the Concordia Retirement Plan are generally considered to be taxable. Why? Nobody's paid any taxes on them yet. The university certainly has not paid taxes on them as they paid the money in, nor are you taxed on that money as it's set aside for you. So you will be taxed on it when you retire. It is generally subject to both federal and state income tax. You do not pay FICA or SECA taxes on it. Yay. That's, for a lot of you, a big chunk of your money. Sometimes you might not pay state income tax on it, depending on what state you decide to reside in after retirement. Some states, as you know, have absolutely no personal income tax. So if you want to escape personal income tax, move to Texas or Alaska or I think North Dakota and other places like that. Other states, they have income tax, but they don't tax pension income. There's a handful of states that might tax other regular income, but they don't tax pensions. For example, the state of Illinois, while they tax just about everything else under the sun, they don't currently tax pension income for some reason. I guess because they haven't thought of it yet. Arizona, I believe, taxes pension income, yes. Yeah. I'd have to check, but you can just go online and Google what states tax pension income, and you'll see a list, or what states don't tax it is more likely. Another thing, as I mentioned, though, is if you are a retired minister of religion, and that's true whether you are ordained or commissioned, any pension income you receive from Concordia plans is eligible to be treated as housing to the extent that you have qualified housing expenses. So basically, while we're going to pay you the money and report to the IRS that you've received that money, you get to determine how much of it's taxable based on whether or not you still have housing expenses, which pretty much you use the same criteria that you use right now. You can either exclude the amount that's been declared as housing, which in our case is 100%, and that's an automatic pre-declared exclusion for every minister. You don't have to request a certain amount every month. So either the amount declared, your actual eligible housing expenses like your home payments or rent, utilities, taxes, maintenance, upkeep, all those things that you can track right now, or the fair rental value of your furnished home. Whichever the three of those is the lesser, that's the amount that you can exclude as housing, up to 100% of your pension if you can actually justify that much. If you cannot justify it all as housing, then you're just going to pay regular income tax on the balance. And every year you'll get a Form 1099-R from our office when you're retired, reporting how much we paid you in pension income. If you're a lay worker, we're going to report the entire amount as taxable. If you're a minister of religion, the box that asks how much is taxable is left blank, except there's a code put in that box. And that code means the taxable amount hasn't been determined, and there's also another notation on the Form 1099-R that says 100% excludable for housing. Plus, when you retire, you will get instructions in your retirement packet of exactly how to report this on your Form 1040 every year and how to take that housing exclusion. And it's a nice reproducible form, so if somebody else is doing your taxes for you, you can copy it every year and just hand a copy off to your tax person to make sure they do it right too, because they don't all really understand this clergy tax. So that's taxability of retirement income. So, yes.
The date of your retirement?
Yes, you have to be rostered at the time you retire. So if you choose to drop off the roster later, it's not going to impact this, although in most cases, I don't know why most people would, because once you're retired, you don't have to go through all the hoops to keep your emeritus up like you do if you're on CRM. Yeah, you do have to occasionally fill out reports so they know you're still alive and well, but not as much. So yeah, most retired clergy, whether they're pastors or teachers or whatever, they just keep their status up as emeritus on the roster after that. Plus that way, if you want to do other work, then you've still got that status. So one other thing that's part of the Concordia retirement plan for some people, and again, benefits change over the years, is the potential post-retirement death benefits. Now, I'm not talking the ongoing monthly survivor benefits. Those are part of what you choose, but certain plans have got, okay, let's go back to the right button here. This is all based again on your status as of June 30th of 2014. If you were A, at least age 55 as of June 30th, 2014, and B, were vested, meaning you had at least 5 years in the plan, then there will be a one-time $10,000 death benefit payable after retirement. For a long time, our plan had put death benefits into the pension because when this pension retirement plan first started in 1965, very few church workers had enough money set aside to pay for a funeral. So the board basically was paying subsidized death benefits out of the retirement plan trust. Well, as they did a review of the status of the plans in later years, they said the original need for this should have gone away because hopefully people are planning further ahead. They're planning for things like this. So they said, well, if people are getting that close to retirement age, we're going to leave that death benefit in effect because if they would have retired as of that date, they would have gotten it. But for people who weren't retirement age yet, they said, we're basically eliminating that because these death benefits were actually not planned for in the funding structure of the retirement plan. They were in essence being subsidized out of the plan trust. And so that's a lot of money going out, whereas their key intent was let's make sure we preserve the trust for the payment of the pension benefits it was intended for. The only other way they could have kept these benefits would have been to gone back to your employer, like the university, and said, you know, we want to keep paying these death benefits, so we need to charge you more for the Concordia retirement plan. You know, that probably would not have gone over well with employers. Plus, I think they figured that people who were under 55 had more time to plan and prepare and save for potential future funeral costs. So one-time death benefit, it's paid if you're single when you die. If you're married, it's going to be paid to you if your spouse dies first, or if you die first, it will generally go to either your spouse or whoever you designate as your beneficiary. But then when the second party in the marriage dies, there's not going to be a second death benefit payable. Unless, of course, you are, now if you're both church workers, if you're both enrolled in Concordia plans, you both met this criteria, there would be two $10,000 death benefits payable, but they'd both be paid at the same time when that first person died. So say you and your spouse are both enrolled in the plans, you're both retired, one of you dies. When the first one dies, there'll be a $10,000 death benefit paid out of their account because you, the worker, died, but then the spouse's Concordia retirement plan would pay a second $10,000 death benefit because their enrolled dependent died. But then later on when the second one died, there would not be another payment made. So something to keep in mind when you're doing your future planning is while you might be entitled to it at one time, you need to also make plans for when that second death occurs.
Build that into maybe if you're doing funeral planning?
Yeah. So people sometimes do that. They do pre-planned funerals, prepaid funerals, or other funeral plans, or they just set the money aside in a money market account or something else for things like that. Yeah. That also leads to the question, which I get almost any time I do, so what happens if I die before I retire and before I decide how I want to draw these benefits? Again, it's based on your marital status to some extent. With the primary pension, there's a default in the plan that says if you die prior to retiring and prior to choosing how you want your pension distribution, we basically treat you as if you had retired on the date of your death and your pension would become payable immediately. Then what we would do, we would start paying your spouse 70%. That's the default selection in the plan. So from that point in time forward, your spouse would start receiving 70% of your pension benefit as a lifetime benefit to them. If you're a single, unfortunately, there's nothing payable because you do not have a spouse to pay benefits to, and benefits are not payable to other people, to other dependents. So that goes away. Supplemental retirement account, if you're married, your spouse will get to choose what to do with that account balance of yours. They can either choose to take it as a lump sum, or they can choose to convert it to a single life benefit paid through the rest of their life. Again, if you're single, it's going to be paid out as a lump sum to whoever you've designated as your beneficiary. With the retiree medical supplement, again, if a worker's married, the spouse can either take that out as a lump sum payment or they can convert it to a monthly pension payment. And again, if you're single, it goes away, doesn't get paid to anyone. So for single workers, the only one that you can designate to go to beneficiary, if you're not already drawing it, is the supplemental retirement account. But again, there are people say, well, if I die before making choices, does it just all disappear and nobody gets anything? Well, not, especially not in the case of married workers. We make sure that your spouse is taking care of them. They're going to have benefits provided to them because there are accrued benefits that you earn. So, questions on any of yes? Sure.
So, once an employee is vested,
Yes.
then if they die before officially retiring, it's not some you fill out the retirement paper and say, I'm retiring, but your benefits haven't started yet.
Right. Yeah, so once, if you're vested and you haven't yet retired, yeah, we basically would at the date of your death, we'd say, well, that's as if you terminated work that day. That's the first thing. If you have reached retirement age and you would normally have been eligible to draw a benefit as of that date, we would basically say, well, as of the date of death, this worker would have been eligible, had they retired, been able to draw so much in pension, and so they automatically start paying 70% of that to your spouse. If you were under age 55 at that time, you wouldn't have been eligible to draw anything till at least age 55. So when you would have hit age 55, the earliest date you could have started drawing it, we'd start paying the spousal benefit at that time. But it's basically figures if you retired and took benefits as of the date of your death, as long as you're vested. The other thing, though, if you die while you're still working, there are other death benefits payable from another plan, from the Concordia Disability and Survivor Plan. Because if you're still working, that's basically treated like group term life insurance, and that plan would pay a death benefit that's at least twice your annual salary to whoever you've designated as your beneficiary. But you'd still get, the spouse would still get the pension benefits in addition to that big lump sum death benefit, which will then normally provide several years' worth of income to the beneficiary. Yes?
Is there any difference between, in benefits between you if you retire or your RIF or your contract is not renewed?
No, as long as you are of retirement age, we treat you as being a retiree. And retirement age is age 55 in our books. That's when you can first retire early and start drawing a benefit. If separation from service is prior to age 55, then we call you a vested terminated worker. The only difference there is you'd have to wait till at least age 55 to start drawing your benefit. But the benefit's calculated the same in any case. It's at high salary times years of service and set up for payment at your normal retirement age. It's just you could not start drawing it till you hit at least early retirement age. But we still, basically, it's not going to have a negative impact on your benefit either way. In our eyes, you're still treated the same, whether it's due to end of contract, job disappears, you voluntarily retire, whatever the case may be.
The supplemental
Uh-huh.
and retired medical supplement,
Yes.
you said you can take as a lump sum?
Yes.
And transfer it over to like a 403B?
Yeah, you
Is
can
that-
roll it into another qualified pre-tax plan if you want to take it out in a single payment but don't want to pay the taxes on it right then. You'll later on when you take it out of that other qualified plan, you'll pay tax on it, but only as you use it. So,
As pension payment, and therefore, if you're a Florida resident, which I am, then you don't get a state income tax on that?
I believe, and I'm not sure if it comes out of a qualified plan, if they treat that in Florida as a pension payment or not. Have to check on that. I would think, I know some states treat distributions from qualified plans in the same way that they treat pension payments. They consider it a retirement payment. So yes, but I'm not sure of Florida tax rules, so I wouldn't want to tell you one way or the other. I don't know if you know anything, Laura, or not.
So I know that if you roll it into the Concordia Retirement Savings Plan, which we have with Fidelity, any distribution that you take from the 403B plan is going to be subject for income taxes. So Fidelity will take
Yeah.
20% right off
Yeah.
the top, and then if Florida has state income taxes, this wouldn't be a pension anymore.
Yeah.
So if Florida does have state income taxes, it would be applicable
That
to
would be
distributions from the
paid- that
board.
would be state income tax.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
that would be exempt from.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your state doesn't have state income taxes, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't need to worry about
Yeah.
that, but it would still be applicable for the federal income.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you take those over and recharacterize them into a Roth qualified plan as you?
You can roll them into a Roth, but then you're going to pay taxes at the time you do the roll. But yes, but they are eligible to roll into a Roth IRA. Not into a Roth 403B, but you can roll them into a Roth IRA. You can roll them into a traditional IRA, and then you don't have the tax.
Pay taxes.
Yeah, right. Like I said, you can roll them into your 403B, same way. But yes, you can roll them, either the SRA or the RMS, into a Roth IRA too, and then just pay the taxes at the time of rollover. But then when you take it out of the Roth IRA, it won't be subject to taxes. So there are a lot of different opportunities for using them. Okay. Concordia Retirement Savings Plan. Everybody here, full or part-time actually is eligible to be putting money in the CRSP. I know a lot of you are. That's what we call it, CRSP, CRSP, whatever, Retirement Savings Plan. It's really, a 403B is a plan that's really designed to be beneficial for people who work for churches, hospitals, schools, and other not-for-profits, because it's got great savings advantages over saving in something like an IRA. And it's really, a 403B is a very simple way for people to save. It's easy to do. You set it up. It's automatic. In a lot of cases, there's really no worry. We tell people you can start it and forget it, but we really don't want you to start it and forget it. We want you to start it and at least pay a reasonable amount of attention to it. But it's a convenient, easy, smart way for you to save for your future. While it's being administered by Fidelity, one thing to keep in mind that we always tell people is this is still a Concordia plan. This is not a Fidelity plan or Fidelity product. That's important because of tax status. It's treated as a church plan. Again, one of the other reasons that it's great for ministers is that because as a church plan, distributions from this can qualify as housing too. So it is a Concordia plan. It's our board that administers it, although we then have Fidelity do the day-to-day administration, the handling of the money and stuff. Traditionally, 403Bs were always pre-tax. So you'd set it up, you'd have the money taken out of your check, and that's the nice thing about a 403B. It's direct withholding from your paycheck. You don't have to receive your paycheck, take the money out, report it other places. It comes straight out of your check before taxes. Again, if you're a self-employed minister of religion, it also comes out pre-SECA tax, meaning any money that you're putting in your 403B, you don't have to pay self-employment tax on. So if you're putting a lot of money aside in your 403B, you're saving a lot in self-employment taxes. And as I mentioned, then when you take it out in retirement, it's also not going to be subject to SECA taxes. So in this way, a 403B is always, if you're a minister of religion and you do the traditional pre-tax, always going to be completely free of SECA taxes. That's a lovely thing. You're normally never going to have to pay earnings on your on any of the income. It will grow tax-free as long as you don't do something crazy or stupid with your investments. And your distributions will be subject to income tax then at the time you take it out in retirement. Again, regular federal income tax, maybe or maybe not state income tax, depending on when your state has income tax. And for ministers of religion, to the extent you have enough eligible housing expenses, it too can qualify for housing. You also have the option to do Roth contributions to your 403B. This is relatively new, but it's been around for several years because originally people, when they're thinking Roth, they were just thinking Roth IRAs, individual retirement accounts. But we've had Roth options available for several years now with our 403B. And like with a Roth IRA, you put money in after tax. So the money still comes straight out of your paycheck, goes straight to Fidelity, but post-tax, which means you have paid the applicable FICA and or SECA tax on it too. You're not going to pay taxes on the growth. As long as you meet certain distribution requirements, the money's going to come out to you totally tax-free in retirement. So while you paid taxes on the principal before you put it in, when it comes out in retirement, you're not paying taxes on what you put in, that's already been taxed, nor are you paying taxes on any of the growth that it's experienced. So you can, depending on how long you leave it, so you can actually save a lot of money in taxes. Now, for ministers of religion, you don't get the SECA tax break this way like you do with pre-tax. You have to weigh which of those is a better tax advantage. And by generally tax and penalty free, just like with a Roth IRA, if you want to take the money out tax-free, you have to have had the plan funded for at least 5 years before you make any withdrawals. And you also can't take withdrawals before age 59 and a half, which is pretty standard distribution rules. But other than that, it's a good way if you're looking to minimize your taxes in retirement, you can think about doing Roth contributions to your 403B. Or you could do some pre-tax and some Roth. You're not stuck with one or the other as long as you don't go over the annual limits. And what you're asking yourself, do I want to pay taxes now or do I want to pay taxes later? Not do I want to pay taxes. As we know, the only two sure things in life are death and taxes. So you will be taxed at some point in time, but what is your individual situation? Things like, what do you think your current tax bracket is going to look like compared to your potential tax bracket in retirement? Are you going to be a higher or lower tax bracket? Some of you, if you're further in retirement, it might be hard to know that. Your status as a rostered church worker versus being a lay worker. Do you want to save that self-employment tax when you're putting the money in? Well, then you know you want to do the pre-tax. Are you more concerned with having tax-free income in retirement? Then you might want to do the Roth. Where do you get the biggest tax advantage? Where's the break-even point? There are tools that we've actually got. Fidelity's website has some tools. You can look at pre and post tax calculations, say, well, where's the break-even point? Where do I get the biggest bang for my buck by doing pre-tax or by doing Roth? And the other thing you think about is if you're intending to leave this money to your family or to other heirs. If you leave them a traditional 403B, just like a traditional IRA or anything else, when they receive that money, they're going to have to pay taxes on it. As long as you've met that 5-year benchmark with a Roth, that money goes to your heirs tax-free also. So it's a way that you can leave your heirs some tax-free money if you're concerned about leaving your heirs any money at all. I personally intend to go through all my retirement income and die when I'm broke. My nieces and nephews will probably get my car and my house and other things, so they really don't need other money from me. I'm not that concerned about it. So for me, that's probably the least concerning of all the points in there too. Yeah. Good. Another thing I've had several people ask, well, how do I know if I'm putting my money in the right funds or anything else? These are the funds that are currently in the Concordia Retirement Savings Plan. So you can see there are different classes funds, fixed interest, bond funds, balance funds, large cap funds, and so on. There are little tickers here that you can click on that'll expand all the information about those funds. These are all their website if you want to see how those funds are performing. It is a mutual fund, basically, meaning your money is going in the pool with other people's money. It's being invested with other people's money. It's being diversified so that you've got balance so that you're balancing risk and reward. And then that gives you better returns that then keep being reinvested or compounding for you. Kind of what they call the napkin school of money management. There's a lot of these little napkins out there with all sorts of other money management things on. But you could look at that list of funds and go, I haven't got a clue what any of those things mean, so how do I know what's right for me? So how do you pick your funds? The default in the plan, which probably most of you are using, I think, is called ProManage, because that's what kicks in from the minute you put in your first dollar. ProManage is a third party that we contract with that's a professional management company that looks at you. They do a profile of you, things like your age, your Social Security, your pension, gender, things like that. And based on that, they're going to take the money that you are contributing every month and diversify it into a number of those different funds based on their profile of you. Then every year they're going to go back and do a rebalance. They're going to say, okay, you're a year older, you're a little closer to retirement, you've got more money invested, your pension's grown, your social, so they'll go back and do minor changes. Like me, as you get close to retirement, as I got closer and closer, like when I hit 60, I saw even more rebalance. They were saying, well, you probably need to move out of some of the riskier things and into some things that are maybe a little less risk. So they, as you get closer to retirement, they do more rebalancing so that you've always got a portfolio that's appropriate for where you currently are in your life. There are ways that you can use some of the new tools, and I'm not going into all of that now, but those are things for individual. Well, you can go in and do some adjustments to that investment level. You can get a little more risky than they're automatically doing, or a little more conservative than they're automatically doing, but still leave it under management with them. They do charge you 16.96 basis points, or 0.01696% to do this for you. So basically, if you want to know how much it's costing for them to do this, you take your account balance, multiply it by 0.01696, divide it by 12 months, and that tells you, or basically, if you got a $10,000 account balance, it's costing about $1.40 a month for them to manage this for you. So it's very reasonable for professional management and making sure that you've always got appropriate investments for you. The other thing that you can do at any time, if you don't like the system, if you'd rather do it yourself, or if you've got a financial advisor that's helping you with investment things too, you can always call Fidelity, you can turn off ProManage, and you can manage and pick your own funds. Or if you're a person who's just totally adverse to any kind of risk, or you want to make other choices, the one thing you have to remember, if you're doing this, if you're picking your own funds, You then have the responsibility for going back and doing regular reviews of your fund choices. You can't just assume that because this one particular fund that you decided to dump everything in was doing really fantastic in 2019, that it's going to be doing the same thing in 2020 or 21. So you need to go back and review and make sure, is that still an appropriate place for me at my current age and with my current needs to have my money invested? Or if you're using a financial advisor, which if you're doing that, we encourage you to be using professionals, make sure that they're going through it with you so that you're keeping an appropriate balance of funds. You might be balancing it to match other investments that you have or something too, but you're the one who has to make sure that if you're not using ProManage, that you're doing the due diligence to make sure that those investment choices you made are still appropriate for where you currently are in your life, in your career. I say this because I happen to know a couple people who worked in another one of our entities a few years ago, and they decided that they really look at the great numbers that fund is doing, and so they turned off ProManage and they were dumping all their money into one or two particular funds. And then 2 or 3 years later down the road, they called our office and were screaming and yelling because their 403B wasn't making money, it was losing money. Well, they'd never gone back and reviewed their investment choices, and those funds had changed. So and I told them if you'd use ProManage, that wouldn't be happening. But again, you're the one who chose those funds. We didn't pick them for you, so you do have that liability. So this is just kind of an example of how ProManage might divvy your contributions up just on an average worker, just so you can kind of see what kind of balances you have. Because some people have asked, well, how come there's not much money going into like the guaranteed interest account? Well, they see that you've got Social Security, they see that you've got a pension. Those are guaranteed income in essence, so they're willing to be maybe a little more aggressive than you'd be on your own or something like that. How much can you generally put in your 403B? The general limit for 2019 is $19,000. That's for anybody up to age 50. Once you are over age 50, you're allowed to do up to an extra $6,000 a year in pretty much what they call old age catch-up contribution. So if you're over 50, you could be putting up to $25,000 a year aside in your 403B. That's another benefit over doing an IRA. The IRA has much smaller limits as to what you can contribute as compared to this. This is a total of what you can put in any sort. So if you're doing some Roth contributions and some pre-tax contributions, you cannot exceed a total of either 19 or 25,000. You can't like do 19 Roth and another 19 pre-tax. That doesn't work because it's all 403B. And also you cannot exceed 100% of what's called your includable, or in essence your taxable income. So for example, if you're a minister and a big chunk of your salary is designated as housing, you can't exceed the amount that's not designated as housing in contributions. So you can only include anything that would be considered taxable income. But even at that, this is really a fairly hefty limit, and especially for people as they get further on in their careers and might have a little more disposable income because they've gotten the bills paid, they've gotten the kids out of the house, and hopefully through college or whatever, or married off. As you have more disposable income, it gives you the opportunity to really save more for your future retirement needs. And then, of course, when you do retire, you've got a lot of options for dealing with the money in your 403B. If you are the type of person who is not comfortable with managing it, if you want to convert it to a pension, you can do that through the Concordia plans if it's pre-tax. Now, we cannot convert your Roth account into an annuity or pension payment through the Concordia Retirement Plan. Why? Because the Concordia Retirement Plan benefit is going to be a taxable pension, and we can't take non-taxable Roth money and convert it into a taxable income stream for you. So that just isn't going to work. You can just take systematic payments out of it as you need. You could set up and tell MetLife, I really want you to just send me $500 a quarter or so much a year, and set it up that way, because you can change that regularly. You can take it out as a lump sum, some or part of it, if you would really want to for some reason. You're not required to do anything with it. So if anybody ever tells you you have to take your money out of your 403B when you retire, ignore them. The only time you're going to have to take money out is once you hit age 70 and a half. And once you're 70 and a half, just like with any other qualified plan, the IRS is going to require that you take out a certain minimum distribution. And if you're in the pre-tax, you'll have to pay taxes on it. If it's Roth, you still have to take out the minimum distribution, but it's not taxable to you. So again, you don't have to do anything with it until 70 and a half if you don't want to. You can do it sooner, but it's not required. So again, it's up to you. It gives you that control over when do I use this money or not. And a great thing about leaving it with the CRSP is that we really, when you look at fees for IRAs, other 403Bs and stuff, the Concordia plan's fees are really some of the lowest and most reasonable that you will find anywhere, because our job is not to make a profit off of you. Our job is to make sure that you've got the funds there that you need to help you fund your retirement. So we don't charge you all sorts of exorbitant fees to handle your money or anything else. And you've got all the resources of Fidelity to help you with your management questions too. So where do you find out more about all of this? The best place to find out benefit information about your own personal benefits is to go to our website, your personal benefit portal, if you will, at concordiaplans.org, and log in to the member login. We've got a tool out there called Retirement Connection. Fidelity's got some great retirement planning tools. Now, they don't automatically have your pension information, but you can import that into Fidelity's tools. They've got some great planning tools there. You can always, of course, contact Concordia Plan Services. Somebody at our office can help you. If you call our toll-free number, our customer care center will kind of field your question, figure out what it is, and find out who the best person is to answer your questions, whether it's me or Laura or somebody in our retirement area or somebody in our health services area. They'll kind of screen you and figure out who's the person to answer your questions. So again, this is our website. The member login is up at the top, so that's where you click to log in once you're at www.concordiaplans.org. Log in there. You'll get a login screen. Some of you have seen this because you should have seen this fall when you signed up for your health care through the university. This is what you would have used. What your preferred email address is. You don't need an ID number anymore. You just need to know what your email is and whatever password you set. And if you can't remember your password, you click the button that says need help signing in. They'll help you retrieve your password and reset it. Fill that in, click sign in. If you have, for some reason, never logged in, click on the set up my new account and register. Click the register button and you'll set up your account there with your email address. So it's easy to get in. Once you're in, you'll get a welcome screen. There's a toolbar here with a lot of different tools. Laura went over some of those at lunchtime. But to find information about your benefits, one of the easiest things are these what I call cards or tiles right below here. Just scroll down. Pension, Fidelity, or Vitality Health and Wellness, Securian Financial. So if you're interested in finding out your retirement income, just click on that button that says See Details. It will take you into our retirement calculator known as Retirement Connection. Anybody who's still actively in the Concordia Retirement Plan should be able to run estimates of your benefits. Now, once you're retired, you don't have access to the same thing because you can no longer do what ifs about the future because you're already retired. You'll be getting some hard and fast numbers. The only other time you should not see the options to get estimates is if you've been retired in the past or drawn money out of the retirement plan in the past, because if we've made payments out of the plan, this calculator can't account for those. So then you'd have to contact our office, but that's a very small minority of people to have that. So when you get in, if you want to find out what your retirement benefits are, click on the link that says Estimate My Retirement Benefits. It will ask you if you want to do a single scenario, if you're just looking for an estimate for one age, or you can compare up to 3 different scenarios. So like, what if I retire at 62 and take my money right away? What if I retire at 62 and wait to take my money till I hit my normal retirement age? What if I wait and retire at my normal retirement age? You can do side-by-side comparisons, say, well, if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, what are the benefit differences? Or if you're pretty sure you just want to know one thing, you can go to the single scenario. So when you go in, it's going to have certain defaults already populating this. This is where you get to tell it what your plans are. So the first thing it's going to ask, it'll assume age 67 for you unless you tell it differently. When do you plan to terminate your full-time employment, i.e., when do you plan to retire? You can either click on an age, anything from your current age on up to like age 80, I think it goes to, if you really want to work that long. or you can click on a date. So if you're thinking I'm going to retire at the end of the term, well, unless that's your birthday, you might want to click on an age, on the date. If you choose age, it will assume that you're going to retire on your birthday when you hit that age. If you click date, you want to put in the date. And if you put in a date, there's a little trick. You click on the calendar and it's a drop down. You have to change the year first, then you have to change the month, then you have to change the day of the month. If you don't actually click on all three, it will default back to the date it was already on. So remember that, year, month, day. Next thing it's going to do, if you're doing the single calculation, anytime you scroll over an area, it'll give little hints about things you can and can't do. Like you can't retire prior to today's date. You can't go back and say, what if I had retired yesterday? That won't work. Today or tomorrow, yes, but not yesterday. Next thing you'll ask is, when do you want your retirement benefits to begin? It will always tell you that cannot be before the date that you put in as your retirement date. So again, you can choose an age, or you can choose a date. So in this guy's case, I said he was going to retire June 15th of 2026. Since he needs money to live on in retirement, I'm deciding he's going to take his benefits July 1 of 2026. The earliest you can take it is the first of the month following the date of your retirement. It will ask, are you anticipating pay increases? And it's always going to default to a 3% pay rate increase. That means this calculator is assuming that you're going to get a 3% raise every year. That's going to be factored into your pension calculation. So if you're not planning or hoping or expecting to get a 3% raise every year, you might want to change that. So in this worker's case, I said, well, no, let's assume maybe he's going to average between now and 2026 about 2% per year. It's going to show your balance in the 403B as of the end of the last month. So if you go out there right now, it's going to show your crisp balance as of 3/31/2019. This is a little bit of an old picture. And it's going to show exactly what your balance was as of that date. Unless, of course, you're not putting any money in the 403B, then it will not show anything. It will ask you how much are you contributing, and you have to put that in as a percentage of your gross salary. If you want to know what gross salary we have reported, you can go to either the top link on here under my retirement and look up your salary history there, or go to your personal statement of benefits. It'll show your salary history. So say if you're putting in $500 a month, you need to figure out what percentage of your gross salary that is, and then enter this as a percentage. And it's going to assume that you're going to keep contributing at that level until your retirement date. And then finally, it's going to say, do you want us to include spousal information? If you're single, it will not show that. That will be grayed out. You can't say yes if you don't have a spouse. If you're married, it will default to yes. Please leave it at yes. If you click no, it's not going to show you any of those survivor benefits that are available to your spouse. It's just going to show you the single life options. If you click yes, it will show all of those options, and then you just run the scenario. And what you're going to get then is you're going to get some benefit results. It's going to tell you at the top, this is your retirement plan, and in this worker's case, supplemental retirement account benefit, payable as of 7/1/2026, because that's the date I chose. The Concordia retirement plan, meaning your pension, is always going to show first. It's going to show you those options: single life, 10-year certain life, joint life 70%. Joint. It will show in the next column what you can expect to receive every month throughout your lifetime if you choose that option. Then in the next column, it's going to show you, if you choose that option, after your death, what your spouse's lifetime benefit would be. Next to that, if you're getting income from the supplemental retirement account, it will always show the supplemental retirement account to the right of it. Again, it will show those same options if you choose to take it as a monthly benefit, and you'd have to take it the same way as you take your primary. It also shows what the lump sum value is, meaning you would have the option to take this out as a lump sum at retirement time. As you keep scrolling down, and you do need to scroll down, so if you don't see stuff, make sure you've got a scroll bar on the side, because I had somebody call me one time and say, I don't see the benefit information you're talking about. Well, did you scroll further down on the page? It's underneath. Oh, no, didn't think about that. So scroll down. If you have money in the Concordia Retirement Savings Plan, it would show down beneath the pension. If you're entitled to benefits from the Retiree Medical Supplement, it will show over on this side. So again, Retiree Medical Supplement, same options, distribution monthly or lump sum. Concordia Retirement Savings Plan benefit, this is your 403B with Fidelity. says lump sum benefit down here, think about that as that's your projected account balance in your 403B as of this particular date that you put in. So in this worker's case, we're assuming, because we knew what his existing account balance was, he says that he's contributing 8% every paycheck until he retires, and it's going to have growth. We're predicting his account balance to have grown to this amount, $60,000 plus, as of that date of retirement. So that's the account balance he has to work with. We also show you then if he would take this account balance and choose at the time of retirement to convert it to a monthly pension, which you can again do as long as it's pre-tax and not Roth through Concordia plans, what kind of a monthly income stream that would generate. Not that you have to do that, not that you have to do it retirement time, but just so that you kind of got it out there to can say, well, really, what is this account balance really worth if I'm looking at creating a monthly income stream? That's what it's showing you. So that shows you all of your benefits from Concordia plans kind of in one place. What do you do with this information once you get it? Well, you can just print off the results if you want a copy to take to your financial planner or store in your records. You can just save it online and retrieve it later. Again, if you just did a one-time or single calculation, you can compare it to other possible scenarios. One of the things that as you're closer to retirement we encourage you to do is view it in what we call a retirement modeler. And when you do that, you'll see those same numbers, but you'll see it gives you the option to choose how you think you might want to take it. So in this case, I was very generous with this man's wife, and I decided he's going to leave her 100% of his pension. So I chose that. I chose the joint 100 for his supplemental retirement account. I could have chosen lump sum. With this retiree medical supplement, I also chose the joint and 100 survivor benefit, but I clicked lump sum for his 403B with Fidelity, the retirement savings plan. Now, just because you click lump sum with this calculator, because you have to choose something to make it run, it doesn't mean that you're actually going to pull it out in a lump sum. It means that basically you're leaving it right where it is as a lump sum, and this calculator will kind of decide when you might, in their opinion, start to need to use some of that money out of there. It's not that you're saying you're going to pull it out and do something else with it. The only time you do something is you said, well, I think I might want to just convert it to a lifetime monthly pension. Then you click one of those others. So when you do all of that, you will get another page that opens. It kind of goes and says, okay, now let's add this to the rest of your retirement. It will tell you that your Concordia retirement plan is going to provide a certain annual income for you. It's going to take those monthly payments and add them up. It's going to tell you over here that annuity is made up of your primary benefit, your supplemental retirement, whatever you choose to annuitize. It's going to also say, and look, you decided you're setting aside some of this money as a lump sum. It's going to give you an estimate of what we think your Social Security benefit is going to be at that age based on our knowledge of your earnings history. Now, if it gives you an annual amount. If you want to click to see what that means monthly, you click on the View Details. It'll show you a monthly amount. There's also a place in there where you can import your own Social Security figure if your Social Security figure is different from what we're projecting. Keep in mind, like I said, that we don't have access to your Social Security earnings history, earnings from other positions, or anything else. So we only know what we know about you since you've been in the Concordia plan. So your Social Security could look a little bit different from what we're projecting, so you can import it. There's a place, if you want to, you can add other savings that you have that are not part of the CRIS, not part of Fidelity. There's another place that you can add other sources of retirement income, whether it's pension income from other sources, income from rental properties. You can include your spouse's Social Security, other pension income there. So a lot of different sources of income that you can import. And then when you click on the Run Model, you will get a graph that could look something like this. So what this graph is showing this particular person is that he's really comfortable in retirement and he can afford to live comfortably until he's 82. And then once he's 82, that money he's been saving in other places, because I gave him some savings and the money his 403B could potentially run out. And then he's going to have this gap between what we project his income to be and what we project his expenses to be. Few things to keep in mind. Some of this is based on national statistics when it comes to retirement planning. Statistically, people need 80% of their pre-retirement income to live on. So the starting point for expenses is 80% of what your salary is projected to be as of that date. And then it has a 3% inflation ratio built into it. So it goes up every year. Inflation planning is always important. There are things that you can change. This is the same worker. I made some minor changes. I just said, well, he's not going to be able to afford to retire at age 65. So I bumped his retirement age up a couple years. I decided he's going to save more in his 403B and save more in his other savings that he has. By doing those things, you can see I filled in the gaps. So if this guy's willing to save a little bit more and work another year and a half, he can retire and should have adequate income to cover his needs in retirement. Now, this is not the be-all and end-all. This is a high-level tool. You don't want to make all your plans based on just this, but you need to really look at individual numbers. It says current expenses percentage a month. Another thing that you could do, which I also did, is like, well, I added his wife's income. Suddenly we have other sources of income that show in green. By adding his wife's income, then I went back and moved him back to his normal retirement age that I was going to have him retire. But because I've added her Social Security and her small pension, it means that between the two of them, they've got enough income coming in for retirement or any other sources of retirement you have. So you can see there are different ways to balance it out. And it's basically saying it runs out to age 90 for everybody. If you're going to live longer than 90, this particular tool doesn't go further. But it's showing that based on these assumptions, pension income, Social Security income, income from the 403B, other savings, spouse's income, that there should be enough income coming in to meet their needs in retirement, at least out to age 90. So it's an interesting tool. It's a fun planning tool. So any questions on using this tool? I know some of you have looked at it already. If you haven't, I suggest that something that you look at and start plugging some numbers in and do some of those what ifs. If you want to find out more information or use any of Fidelity's planning tools to look at your 403B, you can go directly to their net benefit site, or you can also link through your web page here. Just again, click on the See Details. They've got a lot of different planning tools. Some of their messages that you get when you first log in are age sensitive. Like if you're a certain age, you see things like it will target you with certain messages depending how old you are. Like in this case, should you start taking Social Security at 62? It's got some tools to help you figure that out. It will show your account balance up here and the as of date whenever you look at it. There's retirement income planner that you can use here where it will calculate how ready you are for retirement. You do have to sometimes add things to that like other sources of income, pension and so on, because all it looks at is your income through Fidelity and Social Security. There are quick links that can take you around, like a summary of your current benefits. You can get a list of what your current investments are, what your current rate of return is in the plan for the year, how each of the funds that you're in are performing. You can see what those funds are and so on. So a lot of really great tools out here. If you go to the menu and the library, there's all sorts of great educational tools out here too to help you with retirement planning. Things like if you do that retirement income planner, you'll put in information. It'll tell you what you might have in income, what they think you might need to live on in retirement based on what you tell it about your retirement plans, and what your potential gap would be. And then you can go in and see more analysis about your score. You can go back and review it. You can make some tweaks to it to see, okay, well, if I make some changes, where am I? Obviously, this sample one is on track for retirement. If you see yourself over here or here or over here, when it says needs attention, you definitely need attention there. But make sure that you've included all your sources of income, including your pension. But it gives you, again, more tools to help you figure out what are the things I might need to do to meet my retirement goals based on some hypothetical situations that you put in. To get more information, if you need help with your 403B, Fidelity has got a great call center with a designated phone number for Concordia Plan Services members. So if you want information about your CRISP, you need to use this phone number to get a hold of Fidelity. You don't want to just look up Fidelity in the phone book and call them. Part of the reason is that you'll probably get a hold of somebody who has no clue what you're talking about because the Concordia Retirement Savings Plan is not a product that Fidelity sells or offers. You need to use our designated call center for the CRISP. Again, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Central Time. That's when it's available. You can also call Concordia Plans during our regular business hours. We're generally open Monday through Friday. There's somebody in the call center 7 to 5, and they'll put you in touch with somebody that can help you there. So questions on the 403B?
So if we want to increase our fidelity
Yes.
amount, then do we contact him here or
You can talk to HR. There's also a link at the portal that you can click on and automatically do it. But there's a little time lag with doing that. So you might be just as easy just going to HR and completing a new salary deferral form to get the quickest response on it. So,
If you want to
yeah.
manage your Fidelity
Yeah.
funds, is there a direct access website that you can get a hold of?
Actually, you call them first and have them turn off ProManage, and then at that website that you're at, you can move your funds around there. So, but no. Nope. Nope, not with our plan. So no fees. You can move them as many times as you want. You can do it yourself through the website. And you can also, there are guidance people there. There are things there that you can click on for help with determining what's an appropriate balance. Or as you do it, you can also call Fidelity, and one of their financial advisors can help talk with you while you're moving them and help you figure out what might work best for you too. But again, no fees or charges to do that. Anything you need to add to that, Laura, that I forgot? Okay. Because she is the guru when it comes to the 403B. Social Security, I want to touch on a little bit. Now, we don't provide Social Security, but we kind of understand some stuff about it. Sometimes we don't understand why they do some of the things that they do, but we can tell you what they are doing. For a lot of people, Social Security is actually, they consider it their primary source of retirement income. Now, when I look at my Social Security benefits, while they're nice and all, it's like I certainly wouldn't want to live on that. But for a lot of people, it's a large chunk. And for most of you, it's probably going to be at least a significant piece of your retirement income. Generally, benefits are going to be available to you from Social Security when you retire. The earliest you could draw Social Security retirement benefits is age 62. You can wait till your full retirement age, which is based on your year of birth. For example, anybody born in 1960 or later, age 67 is your full retirement age. If you're born in 1959, it's age 66 and 10 months. If you're born in 1958, it's age 66 and 8 months, and so on. So they determine your full retirement age. That's the age at which you can draw your Social Security benefit with no reductions. If you take it out earlier than your full retirement age, it is going to be subject to a reduction. The other thing to keep in mind, depending on when you draw it, is when you hit your full retirement age, if you're still working, you don't have to worry about any earnings limits. You can earn as much as you want after you hit your full retirement age without it having a negative impact on your benefit. If you start taking your benefit early and you still have earned income, if you earn more than a set level every year, they're going to reduce your Social Security benefit by $1 for every $2 over that limit you're earning, and currently that limit's right around $18,000. So if you're earning much more than that, for every $2 over that you earn, they're going to be cutting your Social Security benefit by $1. The other thing that some people keep in mind when they're doing their retirement planning is they might not want to take their Social Security that early anyhow, because once you hit your full retirement age, for every year after your full retirement age you wait to take it up to age 70, it's going to go up by 8% each year. So if your full retirement age is 67 and you wait till 68 to take it, it's going to go up by 8%. You wait to age 69, it's going up by another 8%. You wait to age 70, it's going up another 8%. Once you hit age 70, that's the cap. It's not going up above that. But sometimes when you're looking at your retirement planning, you might say, well, I'm going to hold off taking my Social Security because it's going to go up that much every year, and maybe I'll take money out of some other investment to live on during that time period because it's not earning 8%. So you look at different things like that when you're looking at where's the best place to take my money and when. Another thing to look at, it depends really on your work history and such too, and that is some people look at spousal benefits, especially if one of the spouses has not worked much outside the home and might not have much of a Social Security benefit. If a worker is fully qualified for a Social Security benefit at their normal retirement age, their spouse can get a spousal benefit based on the worker's history, not on their own working history, that could be as much as 50% of the fully qualified worker's benefit. Whereas the spouse's own Social Security benefit, they might have one, but it might be much less. So in that case, if a spouse's full benefit is less than 50% of the other workers, the other spouse's full benefit, they might want to say, well, I'm not going to draw my own retirement benefit. I'll draw a spousal benefit instead because it's larger. If you are a person with a very small Social Security benefit, you might want to check and see if you'd get more as a spouse. Social Security does not always volunteer that information up front. So that's one of the things you have to check on. Because Social Security used to allow a lot more, how would I put it, game playing with benefits. They used to allow people to apply for benefits and suspend their benefits, which didn't allow a spouse to apply for their benefits even though the worker wasn't drawing it. They'd let people start with one kind of benefit, and when they reached a certain age, change to another kind. A lot of those loopholes have closed. So you need to make sure ahead of time that you know what kind of benefit is you want to draw, because in pretty much you'll probably be locked into it then once you've made that decision. But the only time benefits change automatically is when somebody dies, and then the surviving spouse is either going to keep drawing their own benefit or draw the deceased worker's benefit, whichever one of the two was larger. So where do you get more pertinent information from Social Security? Well, I have provided some for you. I took some of the more common documents and stuff that are available at Social Security's website and kind of combine them into this one piece of paper here. The best place to go for information about Social Security, because it's the best place that you're always going to straight and current answer, is to go to their website, which is www.ssa.gov, or you can also type in socialsecurity.gov. It defaults to the same place. That'll take you to your website. This is their toll-free number if you want to actually call and talk to somebody at Social Security. You can also normally go into your local Social Security office, but if you want to sit down and talk with somebody, in most cases, you're going to have to call them and make an appointment to talk to somebody. One little way to get around that is that normally Social Security starts their scheduled interviews with people about an hour after the office opens. So if you want to be one of those people that gets to your Social Security office really, really early and you're the first person in line, you can generally talk to somebody as a walk-in by getting there early. But if you want to be guaranteed a face-to-face conversation with somebody at the time that's convenient for you, you might want to call them and make an appointment. But again, most of the information you want, even things like applying for benefits, you can get online at their website, which is shown here. The pictures rotate, so they're changing from time to time. They've got a great menu, basic information on retirement, disability, Medicare questions, address changes, commonly asked FAQs and stuff. Social Security has a portal, kind of like your MyCPS portal. You can set that up. You go in, you set that account up. They'll ask you certain security questions that you should know the answer to, because if not, it will lock the system up for you. You set up your My Social Security portal. That's where you can go to retrieve your statements from Social Security, your earnings history. If you do estimates, you can get those there and things. So you can get those online. If you need information about your Social Security number, things like Social Security cards and stuff, there's another link. Retirement estimates from Social Security, you can click on another link to get retirement estimates. A couple of things that are in this pamphlet that might be of interest to you. First of all, in here is just information on how they calculate your benefits and what criteria they use, because when Social Security calculates their benefits, they're not just looking at your last couple years, they're looking at pretty much your entire working history, going back to either 1958 or your age 22, whichever came later. They're going to base your Social Security benefit on what they call indexed earnings. You can see that every year, the column B here on page 3, that's where you put in your actual earnings, and then there's an indexing ratio, but you can never put in earnings greater than the maximum listed in column A, and then there's an indexing ratio that's applied to that to kind of bring it up based on consumer price index and such too. So they're going to average your highest 35 years of indexed earnings and use that as the basis for your Social Security benefit. And they're always going to use a 35-year average no matter how many years of actual earnings you have posted. So if they need 35 years and some of your years have 0, guess what? They're going to be averaging zeros into that 35-year average, because they're going to take that total and divide it by the maximum number, and then they apply that figure. There's a formula at the top that shows you, but just so that you know that it's based on more than just your last couple years of work. Other things that are in here, there's information on the next page about how to use your online retirement estimator. Because if you go to Social Security and just get their standard estimates, you'll normally see an estimate for age 62. If you're under 62, an estimate for your normal retirement age and an estimate for age 70. But what happens if you want to draw your benefit at 66 or at 68 or something? You can run estimates, and that's where you use the instructions that are printed here, which you also find online, for how to set up how to use your online retirement estimate. It's really very, very simple. There's some general information in here to help you understand what the maximum point might be for drawing your Social Security benefits, like things like how old are you still working, what other income do you have, where's the break-even point, and so on. So it's a tool that can help you figure out, well, is it best for me to start early? What would be the reasons I'd want to? What would be the reasons I might not want to, and so on? Am I still going to have earned income? Is that going to impact my benefits, or will that be a negative thing? Am I better off waiting till a later age and letting it max out? The next couple pages talk about how to create your profile online with Social Security to set that up, and some of the tools that are available out there, and so on. There's sample in here of what Social Security statements look like, and earnings history, and so on. And then finally, there's information here on how to keep your earnings record accurate, because again, if they're basing your Social Security on your entire working history, you want to make sure that that working history, that earnings history, is accurate. If you see gaps in it, you want to fix them, or numbers that look wrong, you want to get them corrected as quickly as possible. And so then the back page has information about how to fix your earnings history if it is incorrect. This is probably most important to ministers of religion who pay self-employment tax. We tend to see more gaps and more issues with people's Social Security records if they are self-employed. Whether it's the way you're reporting them, your tax forms or what, but there are people who kind of see some problems there. Generally, if you're a lay worker that's employed, your employer's doing all the reporting, we don't tend to see too many errors there unless whoever you work for really screwed up the payroll information or something, but you'd probably notice that when you get your tax forms every year anyhow. So that's just some general information on things that you can do with Social Security. Another thing that you think about in your retirement planning is, am I going to pay taxes on my Social Security benefit? The answer to that is possibly on some of your benefit. Social Security has got this very unusual kind of graduated scale for determining if your Social Security benefit's taxable, and it's based on your annual adjusted gross income. So in years that you have a higher adjusted gross income, you might be paying taxes on more Social Security. If you're, as an individual, well, I should maybe look at married couples here, none of your Social Security benefits going to be taxable if your adjusted gross income as a married couple is $32,000 a year or less. If your adjusted gross income, and against your adjusted gross income, which again for ministers, guess what? That's after you've taken out your housing. If your adjusted gross income is over 32 but less than 44,000 as a couple, you're going to pay income tax on 50% of your Social Security benefit. So it's not saying a 50% tax, but only half of your Social Security benefits going to be subject to income tax. And again, that's based on your regular whatever tax bracket you're in the year in which you're paying taxes. And then if your adjusted gross income is greater than 44,000 as a couple, then up to 85% of your Social Security benefit could be taxable. So basically 15% of your benefits is not going to be subject to tax. And again, it's based on the regular tax bracket that you're in that calendar year. So it's based on your modified adjusted gross income. If you need more information about this, there is a IRS publication that goes into much greater detail than that, but just be aware that there is a strong possibility. Some people are under the impression that Social Security benefits aren't taxable, and that was true years ago. But over the years, they have gradually started taxing more and more and more, each time promising that that's it, they're never going to do any more. But back when Social Security was established back in the 30s, we were told none of it. Well, we weren't, I wasn't around there, but the American public was told that it would never be taxable. So I don't hold my breath on this one either. But right now, the maximum amount they could tax is 85%. And again, it's all based on what your modified adjusted gross income is in each tax year. So questions on Social Security that I would even remotely know the answer to.
So at least we're not subject to self-employment tax.
Right.
After 65.
No,
right?
no, except on earned income that you have, but not any passive income like this. And basically, the same rules apply to this as to their other pension income when it comes to state tax. If you're living in a state that doesn't tax pension income or doesn't have personal income tax at all, then your Social Security tax is only or Social Security benefit will only be subject to federal income tax. So you probably want to find a state with very, very low state taxes to live in retirement, because that's a great benefit to you. Okay, some other things quickly. Other things you can do to help yourself, obviously familiarizing yourself with your pension benefit, your Social Security benefit, figuring out how much of those benefits you're going to need to cover your expenses, and determine how much more you might need to save on your own for retirement using tools like the 403B. Because remember, whether you think it or not, everybody needs to save for retirement. The general rule of thumb for people who have a robust pension is at least 10, possibly up to 15% of your salary you should be setting aside for retirement. Financial experts are telling younger people that are starting out right now, who a lot of them won't have the benefits of a pension, you better start saving 15% of your salary from the get-go if you want to be able to afford to retire comfortably. And I don't know about any college students or other young people that you know, but very few of the ones that I know are really able to set aside 15% of their salary when they first get their first job or their first call for retirement. So we are blessed to have a pension, but we still want to make sure that we save so that when we run these calculations, we see this, we don't see something like that. So again, how much should you set aside? How much do you need to meet those needs? That's why these tools are helpful. They can show you how saving different amounts can fill those gaps. Another part of it, how much can you afford to save? Well, the flip side of that is how much can you afford not to save if you want to meet your retirement goals. This is just a basic savings philosophy that's been around in the church for a while. Again, it's not necessarily you have to follow it, but it's kind of the principle, what we call the 10-10-80 principle. Being church workers and others, we're used to the concept of tithing, starting with giving back to the Lord, first fruits of what He's given us. The second thing that we should really be thinking about if we're really seriously thinking about our future is, what is our tithe to ourselves for our future needs, our savings for future needs, and then 80% for living expenses, because statistically in this country, that's about what most people do use for their daily living expenses. Their food, their taxes, everything else is 80%. So this is only one example. If you can do 10, 15, 75, or 15, 15, 70, or whatever you do, that's great. It's just the order's important, because most people, if they're really going to succeed in what they're doing, they have to do it up front. You don't wait and say, well, let's do everything else and whatever's left over, I'll save that for my future, because for most people, that's never going to work. You have to be conscientious. You have to be basically proactive with doing that. So make it a priority, whether it's pension, saving for housing, college, medical, all those things that you have to save for. Think about what those are and what you need. And for each of those things you're saving for, what's my time frame to accomplish it? If I have a shorter time frame, am I going to have to set aside more to meet those goals? If I have a longer time frame, what do I need to set aside in that longer time frame to meet those goals? But again, it's the example that's really important, the order, the priority, not necessarily those percentages. You need to do whatever percentages are appropriate for you based on your other needs and expenses. So for example, if you get a whole lot of credit card debt and you're paying 25% out in interest rate on credit cards, probably more important that you pay that off before you start saving somewhere that's only paying you 8 to 10% interest or something, whatever that might be. So sometimes it is more important to deal with that heavy debt load first and then use that money that you freed up when you no longer have that debt. Put it aside for your retirement needs, but save enough to meet your needs. Set short and long-term goals too. Some of your savings will be for shorter term things. Hopefully by now all of you have emergency cushions set aside where if something breaks down, the car needs new tires, whatever it might be, you have got that money set aside in a fund the general rule of thumb was always for people who are established to try to have about 3 months worth of your living expenses set aside in an emergency fund. If you don't have that much, we'll get to work on it and build it up now. You might be saving for home after retirement. You might be saving for education, maybe for yourself still, maybe not, maybe for kids or grandkids or something else. Special family events, retirement, whatever it is. And again, what's your time frame for those and where's the best place to save for those? For short-term things, you're obviously not going to put your emergency fund into your 403B or your IRA or something like that. You're going to set up separate funds for that, whether it's a money market account, whether you go to LCEF and use one of their special emergency fund accounts or something like that. One of the things I do, I have an emergency fund. I have another fund that is set aside for all those fun things like gift giving, Christmas travel, and everything else. Cardinal tickets, well, that's not an emergency. That's a priority. That's like a regular budget item. So, what I do, and you can do whatever works best for you, because I know for me, if I wait and pay the bills first and save that, it's not going to get set aside. I have the money taken straight out of my paycheck every pay period before I even get it. I have money set aside that goes to my church deposit. I have money, well, that comes out of my checking account. I have money that goes into my 403B. I have money that goes to my emergency fund until it's funded to the level I need, and I only fund it at that level. Then I don't put any more in until I use some of it down. And then I have another account set up, and I actually use an LCF Steward account for that I use for my travel, vacation, other fund money. It goes straight into that account. Then when I need it, I pull it out of there. So I always know how much money I have available. And I figure out at the start of the year, well, how much do I think I'm going to spend on an average on birthday, Christmas gifts, special events, travel, things like that. And I divide that by 24, and I have 1/24 of that put in every pay period. Then when I need to spend the money on something, I'm probably still going to put it on my credit card because in most cases it's easier and cheaper and more convenient to do that. And then when the credit card bill comes in, I pull the money out of that fund and say, okay, here's the money. Boom. I paid for that expense because I pretty much prepaid for it. You need to do what works for you so that you can meet your financial goals. So other questions on saving for your future, things like that? Because I know there's this one other topic we need to touch on here before I let you go, and we're running long here. Healthcare. Everybody's favorite topic, whether it's now or in retirement. But in retirement, it becomes really important because it becomes your responsibility. It is probably one of the most important decisions that you're going to make when it comes to retirement is what are you going to do about healthcare? And sometimes healthcare can be a driving factor in when you decide to retire. I think I mentioned earlier, if you retire before you hit normal retirement age, you could be looking right now at spending $17,000 to $18,000 as a couple per year in paying for health insurance premiums. That doesn't even include your out-of-pocket expenses. So some people say, well, I really don't want to retire till I hit 65 and I'm eligible for Medicare, because then those costs are going to go down. Of course, the coverage changes some too. But you want to make sure that you understand what's available to you, when it's available, what it's going to cost. If you retire before age 65, you do generally have the option, if you're currently a Concordia Health Plan member, to keep your current coverage and pay for it until you turn 65 and go on to Medicare. Depending on what current option you have here through the university, you do have the potential to switch. So for example, if you got Healthy Me A or Standard High Deductible Plan, you can say, well, I can move to Healthy Me B and it's going to cost me a little bit less. But it has to be one of the plans offered through the university. If you're going to be 65 but your spouse isn't, you could stay in our plan in one of our Medicare supplements and keep your spouse in your existing level of coverage till they turn 65. If you retire on or after the time you're 65, then Medicare will automatically become your primary insurance at the time of retirement. We do offer Medicare supplements through Concordia Plans. We offer 3 different Medicare supplements. That information's in your packet too. If you keep working beyond age 65 and you're in the Concordia Health Plan, that insurance is going to remain your primary insurance for as long as you're working enough hours to qualify for insurance here through the university. Not just for you, but also for your spouse. So even if your spouse is older than you, if they're covered under the Concordia Health Plan as your dependent, it's going to remain their primary insurance too. So Medicare, if you even sign up for it, is going to be secondary. And in most cases, most people then do not sign up for Medicare at 65 unless you're already taking Social Security. If for some reason you have another group health plan, you need to check with that plan about their rules. The rule of thumb with the Concordia Health Plan for workers who retire before age 65 is that under the current plan rules, you'll be eligible to stay in the Concordia Health Plan as a retiree for the rest of your life, as long as you've been a member of the Concordia Health Plan for at least 5 years immediately prior to retirement. So that means you and any enrolled dependents you have are eligible for basic lifetime ongoing coverage. And again, you continue at your current level of coverage until you hit 65. Then at that point in time, you can still stay with the Concordia Health Plan, but be switched to one of our Medicare supplements. Options available, like I said, you can continue with whatever plan the university has. We still community rate them, and so it's going to be based on the cost here for Concordia University, Wisconsin, no matter where in the country you move. It's the same community rating because it's an extension of, your coverage through the university. Premiums would be paid directly out of your checking account or savings account, whatever. It'd be set up for direct ACH from your account. That's how you pay for it automatically. And then when either you or your spouse reach 65, you'll be eligible to enroll in one of our Medicare supplements through Amwins Group Insurance, which is actually part of the Hartford Insurance Company. They're the ones that administer our Medicare supplements for us now. If you work beyond age 65, like I said, CHP remains your primary insurance. If this is the case, you should only sign up for Medicare Part A while you're still working, and even that you might not want to sign up for. You don't want to listen to all the panicked people out there who say, when you turn 65, you have to sign up for Medicare or you'll forever be penalized. This is not true if you have qualified group insurance through your employer, like the Concordia Health Plan. So you don't have to sign up for 65. You can sign up later when you actually retire, and there will be no penalties. Because when you retire, the HR department is going to fill out a separate form that goes with your Medicare application that verifies you were covered under a qualified plan. That allows you to be enrolled through what's known as a Medicare special enrollment period. So it basically waives those penalties that would otherwise be imposed because you didn't sign up for Medicare at 65. You never want to sign up for Medicare Part B while you are still working, because you would have to pay a premium for Part B. You don't pay a premium for Part A. You would for Part B. And because the Concordia Health Plan is already paying everything that Medicare Part B would pay, Medicare B would never reimburse you anything for any of your claims. So you'd basically be paying that $134 a month Medicare premium for nothing. And again, you're not required to take Part B. You might or might not sign up for Part A. If you got Healthy Me A, you might want to go ahead and sign up for it. That's a PPO plan. If you have Healthy Me B or the traditional high deductible health plan, and you're putting money in a health savings account, if you'd sign up for Medicare, even just Part A, you can no longer put pre-tax money in your health savings account once you sign up for Medicare, because there's a tax law that says if you have any other health insurance outside of your high deductible health plan, you can't put pre-tax money in a health savings account, and they include Medicare in that other health insurance group. So you can also decline Part A. You don't have to take that at age 65 either. There is no penalty as a Concordia Health Plan member for deferring that. The only time you'd absolutely have to take Medicare, or at least Part A, is if you sign up for Social Security and you're over age 65. Because once you start drawing Social Security, the Social Security Medicare rules require that you at least have Medicare Part A from that point in time on. If you decline Part A, they'd also stop your Social Security benefit until you once again signed up for Medicare. So again, if you have a high deductible health plan and you're putting money in a health savings account, you want to decline A, you'll then enroll for them at the time you actually retire. Part B will become effective whenever you ask for it, like the first of the month after your retirement. If you retire more than 6 months after you hit your age 65, Medicare, whenever you retire, will automatically make Part A retroactive 6 months. So if you say you're retiring in August, they're going to make your Part A retroactive back to the start of February. So you will have to stop contributing to your HSA 6 months before you actually are going to retire. Otherwise, once they make Part A retroactive 6 months, and it makes that money you put in during that 6 months period taxable. Bottom line in any of this is as you get close to those ages, as you get close to retirement, if you're working beyond age 65, before you sign up for anything with Medicare or anything else, contact our office, talk to me, talk to Laura, talk to Karen in our financial wellness, talk to one of the people in our health services department. We'll kind of walk you through the questions. Which health plan do you have? Who all's covered, and so on. Should you or should you not sign up for Medicare Part A? Yes or no? When are you retiring? When should you sign up for Part B? And when should you stop putting money in your HSA? Contact our office so you don't make silly mistakes that might come back and haunt you later. That's yes.
And we are on Hilton EV and HSA.
Yeah.
What we have left in our HSA, can we take that with us then?
Yes. HSA money can be used way into retirement as long as you've got money in the account. Once you're retired, you can use it to pay your out-of-pocket medical expenses. You can also use it to pay for your Medicare Part, to reimburse yourself for your Medicare Part B premiums. You cannot use it to reimburse yourself for your supplemental coverage premiums, though. For some reason, the law just doesn't allow that. You can't use it for paying health plan premiums except Medicare B premiums, but you can use it for out-of-pocket medical expenses. The weird thing is you can use it to help pay for long-term care premiums, but not medical insurance premiums. So it's, again, the government makes the rules, we don't, and we know it's not easy to understand a lot of the rules government makes and such too. So again, as you get closer to that, and if you've got questions, probably, like I said, the bottom line with all of this is call our office, talk to one of this, and we'll kind of walk you through that decision tree on what's best for you. Once you're ready to retire and go on Medicare, they've got a great website with a lot of information. Some of it, again, I included in this information. This little brochure talks about, first of all, our health plan, our Medicare supplements, the coverage you have under them, the 3 different options. There's also some very general information in here on Medicare in particular, starting on page 12, just what is Medicare, what is Part A, what does it cover, what does Part B cover, what's Medicare Part C, those are Medicare Advantage plans, what's Medicare Part D. On page 14, there's a little kind of decision tree that's saying, once you're retired and on Medicare, do I want additional Medicare and with a supplement? Do I want to go with a Medicare Advantage plan, which is a Part C plan, which is kind of like a Medicare HMO or so on. So it kind of leads you through what are the different parts and what do I need based on how I want to access my medical coverage. On the back, there's also a little checklist if you're health shopping for different health plans in retirement, checklist of what all's in the supplements that Concordia provides. And then if you're comparing it to another plan or two, does that plan cover the same things? And is that important to you as you weigh that against what premiums you might be paying for different plans? Other things that you'll need to think about as you're planning for your retirement are things that hopefully you've already thought about, things like your will, what happens to your assets when you die. Hopefully all of you have wills, but as you're planning for retirement, it might be a good time to go through and review it. Little trick somebody told me a long time ago, sit down and read it out loud. Because if you just read it silently, like most people, you start skimming things, might miss things. And especially if you read it out loud to somebody else, if there's something in there that strikes you as being out of place, you'll notice it a lot more easily. So nice way to spend an evening with your spouse. Sit down, pour yourself a glass of wine or whatever, and sit and read your will out loud to them. Great romantic evening. But then if you notice things that need changes, do not make any marks on an original of your will, because if you make any marks on it, you've just nullified your will. And if you paid money for it, you don't want to do that. Post-it notes are a wonderful invention. I just wish I had invented them. So post-it note or make a photocopy and make notes on there. Then you might need to talk to an attorney about modifying or at least putting a codicil or something on your will if there's some changes that need to be made. Make sure that you've still got the right executors named and things like that. Make sure you have powers of attorney in place, so if something happens to you, somebody can make those financial decisions. Some decisions can be made automatically by a spouse, some things can't. So you want to make sure that things like that are covered so somebody can act on your behalf if you're unable to. Sometimes you might want to have more than one power of attorney, either people jointly acting or an either or, things like that. You might even want powers of attorney for specific things. I know when I moved my mother into assisted living, She was living in Arizona near my sister and my brother-in-law, who's a pastor, so they had her primary power of attorney, and I was secondary. But she still owned a home in Colorado that we'd had to move her out of, so I had to get a separate power of attorney, what's known as a springing power of attorney, that was just good for me to use to put her house on the market and sell it. And as soon as the house was sold, then that power of attorney went away. But it was needed for a specific purpose because I was operating in a third state. I mean, I was in Missouri, the house was in Colorado, she was living in Arizona. Fortunately, our EAP, their legal services, were a great help. And I got all the paperwork I needed for that, from my sister for the power of attorney, for like next to no cost through our EAP, our Employee Assistance Program. So make sure your medical directives are in place. So if something happens to you and you can't tell your doctor what your medical preferences are, you've got the paperwork there to do it, both naming the person and also your list of what you do and don't want. Plug me in, unplug me, whatever the answer may be, but have that in place, because legally, without that, the doctor who's treating you, if you're incompetent, is the one who legally gets to make those decisions. You might want to set up charitable giving if you've got a favorite charity, your school, me, your church, whoever you want to give money to after your death. You can set that up different places. If you need help with things like that, you can always turn to the LCMS Foundation. For a lot of your other needs, we do have some very nice tools available. We do have an employee assistance program. A lot of people think of this as like a counseling center, but it's got a lot of other things, including legal service, elder care services, pet care services, all sorts of things. Toll-free number, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Legal service, free half-hour telephonic or face-to-face conversation. Discounts on certain legal needs, paperwork, and so on. Consult with attorneys, professional resources for creating legal documents. You also have legal services available through Securian Financial. It's at lifeworks.com. When you log in, everybody puts in the ID LFG and the password resources, and after that you can set up your own account with your own password or a toll-free number, so you get access to legal forums, legal libraries, referrals, will preparation services, and things like that, all as through Securian. And this is all because of your membership in the Concordia plan. So some of these services have minor costs, but a lot of them, they're totally free, especially a lot of the online services and stuff too. So it'd really be helpful for you getting all those legal things together, or if nothing else, just understanding what sort of legal paperwork you might need to make sure that you're prepared in the event something happens to you. For example, my uncle died a couple months ago, and they never realized it had an extremely old life insurance some kind of policy with what had originally been AAL. It was that old. And when they got married, for some reason his agent, when he was reviewing all of his legal stuff, that never got switched over to my aunt's name. It was still listing his parents. Both of them have been dead for a decade or more as his beneficiaries. And even though this all happened in October, they are still going through all the legal hassle to try and get that money and the cost. So about a quarter of what that was worth is now going to pay legal fees and stuff too. So make sure you've got everything up to date. Anything that has a beneficiary with Concordia plans, go online, whether it's your Fidelity account, whether it's your disability survivor plan, survivor benefits, go online and make sure that your beneficiaries are up to date on everything. That just smooths the transition. That means when something happens to you, that money automatically proceeds to your beneficiary without probate or anything else. So make sure anything that can have a beneficiary designation is up to date with the people that you want to receive that money. And again, if you have questions about what that might need to be, you can contact our office. We'll kind of help you go through a review of things that you might need to look at. So questions on any of this? Yes, sir.
For your health insurance
Yes.
continuation, where if you have 5 years of continuous
Yes.
health insurance, and then you can continue the rates after retirement.
Mhm.
If you go down to part-time, can you still continue
Yes,
that
because
eligibility?
right, if you're basically part-time, and again, it depends on your age. As long as you're over 55, we deem you to be retired for health plan purposes because you are not working enough hours to qualify for coverage to the university. Even if you might still be working enough hours to be enrolled in retirement plan and stuff, you qualify for that extension because you're not working enough hours to be enrolled as an active worker. So yes, you can continue it then. Other questions? A couple other things to keep in mind as you're retiring. This is more the fun part about retirement, I think. It can be exciting. For some people, it can be scary, but there are a lot of fun decisions that you get to make. When do you announce your retirement? Now, when you decide to tell your department head, HR, and other people is really going to be based on your job and what their needs are to know. Some of you probably don't need to give nearly as much notice as other people. Some of you, faculty, and some of you might need to give a lot longer notice because of the process to go through and replace you. Of course, as I told my boss, when I retire, you know I'm irreplaceable. You'll just have to find a warm body to fill the seat. No, Laura will do it all then, right, Laura? Where are you going to live? What are you going to be doing with your time? Who do you want to be in retirement? If you had your ideal retirement lifestyle, what would it be? Now, an island on Fiji might not be on your bucket list, or maybe it is for a while, but who do you want to be and how do you make it a reality? As far as announcing your retirement otherwise, we would like a 90-day notice, if at all possible. So I know sometimes things happen short term, but in most cases, you're going to know about 3 months out that you're going to retire. Let us know 90 days out. The reason for that is when you contact our office, we're going to put together a retirement packet for you. It's going to have information about your benefits and a checklist of things to check off. This is how I want to take this benefit. This is how I want to take this benefit. Do I want to roll this over? If so, where? If I'm taking a benefit and not leaving it to my spouse, do I need to have her sign this spousal consent form? Direct deposit forms for having your retirement payments directed to the right bank account, verification that we've got your right Social Security number before we start paying your benefits. If you want to have taxes withheld from your benefits, there are tax forms in here for you to complete so that we do the proper withholding, or for you to tell us, no, don't do any withholding. That way, and then the other thing that's going to be triggered automatically is you'll automatically, once we get the retirement notice, you'll be triggered with information about continuing your health coverage in the plan too. So having that 90-day notice makes sure that all of that's taken care of, everything's in place. So when your retirement occurs, you last day of work's June 30th or whatever, you're going to have your first pension payment in your bank account on the first working day of the month. Your health coverage is going to be in place, and everything else is a very smooth transition. Having said that, if you can't get it quite that early, we work as hard as we can to get it processed as quickly as possible. But there are some cases where we end up literally having to make at least one monthly retirement payment retroactively because we didn't get the notice early enough. The same rule kind of holds true with Social Security. They do request that you start the process of applying for Social Security about 90 days out. Same thing holds true with Medicare, that they request about a 3-month or 90-day initial contact for that. So just think 90 days, 90 days, 90 days when it comes to official notifications, and then for retirement for your employer, what works best. Then as far as the other things, if you're thinking about moving, maybe you want to visit the places you're thinking about moving to and stay there for a few weeks as if you live there. I know people say, well, I'd love to live there, but they don't realize that maybe going somewhere on vacation is not quite the same as living there permanently. Where are you going to grocery shop? Where are you going to go to church? What about transportation? All those other things like that. So you need to think about things like that. Literally, over the years, I've known several people said, well, our plan is we're going to sell our house. We're going to downsize when we retire. And then when we get ready for retirement, we're going to buy a mobile home and we're going to travel around to national parks, visit our kids and everything else. It's like, I know truly somebody who did this, and they'd never spent that much time traveling together in the entire time they'd been married and working. After about 6 months, they were not very happy with each other, and they were saddled with a big, huge Winnebago. They downsized from the home they lived in long to this little bitty place with barely enough room to park the Winnebago next to it. So it's like, you know, you can rent those things and try it out before you buy. So think about things like that before you jump into anything with both feet. Is this something we've done before? Is this something you're really going to enjoy doing? Are there ways we can try it out without diving in full force of something? But having said that, retirement's also a time to go back and do some of the things that you've loved to do over the years and just haven't had a chance to do while you've been tied to work and stuff too, or new and exciting things. Some of the things my mother took up after retirement amazed me. She was taking flying lessons when she was retirement age and went up in the Goodyear blimp and tried parasailing and all sorts of other things. Like, really, Mom? Are you sure? But hey, why not? So you just need to decide what's appropriate for you and how you can make it a go for you. I want to thank you for your time. I know we think we're supposed to go about 2 hours, maybe a little more than that. But thank you for being here. If you have additional questions, my card is in the packet. I'll stick around and answer questions now if you have any individually. For more general information, call our toll-free number, 888-927-7526. Let our customer care people know what your question is. They'll send it to the right person. Or if you just forget how to get a hold of us, say, I need to talk to Paul, I need to talk to Laura, whatever. General questions you can send to info@concordiaplans.org. And just remember that our whole purpose for being there is to support those of you that are in the ministry to make sure that you understand your benefits, that you're prepared for right now and also for your retirement future. And so please turn to us with any questions that you want, things like that. And so thanks for your time. I appreciate you all being here, and hopefully you all learned something that's going to be useful to you here. And anytime down the road that you've got further questions, contact me, contact Laura. She'll be on campus a lot more than me in the future, so she'll kind of be the face that you get used to seeing around here, and turn to her with your questions and such too, and she'll be more than happy to help you, I know, because she enjoys talking about this. So. Well, I do too. That's one of the things I've loved most of my job over the years is I'm not stuck in the office staring at a computer screen or just on a telephone. I actually get to go out and meet with people and get to see all the faces attached to those names that we see and stuff, which not a lot of other people get. With the 100 and some people that work in our office, not too many actually get to go out and see these are the people that you're serving. So I've always considered that a huge blessing of my job. So thanks for your time. But if anybody has any other questions, I will gladly answer them. If you don't want to stick around and type the whole group, just come up here and ask me individually. So thank you all.